Audiobook by Fate's Reader. Don't forget to subscribe and like the channel for more epic series. Drop your recommended novel below. We love to know what you want to hear next. Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 451, The 18th Form. The dragon Qilin immediately turned and ran while shouting in exasperation. The divine arts practitioners of West Earth are crazy. Cult master. They must be crazy. Who awakens an entire city and use it as a weapon. Behind them, everything Bamboo City passed over was razed to flat ground. The big city was like a fresh life form taking big strides to chase them. It flipped over the mountain ridges at an extremely fast speed. Everything it passed over was flattened. The city was like a terrifying mouth that could swallow and crush everything. Not only that, the thousands of giants in the city swung their bodies like huge hammers, and all that couldn't be chewed into bits and pieces by the city was smashed into smithereens by the giants. On top of that, behind the city was a rolling dust cloud of all the things that had been broken down into pieces. The dust spread in 100 miles radius, obscuring everything in sight. The city swallowed with its front and spat out what was left behind itself. One could well imagine what the consequences would be like if they were to be caught up in its mouth. Qin Mu hurried non-stop, and the dragon Qilin was putting his utmost effort into sprinting. At that moment, though, a huge river suddenly lashed out from within Bamboo City like a long whip. The dragon Qilin immediately dodged, but the huge river was extremely nimble. It moved right and left, forcing the dragon Qilin to dodge in all directions. His speed decreased, and Bamboo City gradually caught up with him. "Big brother!" Xianxia's voice was trembling when she looked back in fear. The ground trembled and stones that were the height of humans were thrown midair. Bamboo City opened its gate wide and started crunching with sharp teeth in preparation. "No worries, Sister Qia. Don't be afraid." Qin Mu turned around and his sword pellet floated into the air, moving in front of his body. The dragon Qilin had been forced by the huge river to dodge right and left, and if it continued, they would soon be swallowed by Bamboo City. "Who is blocking us?" Qin Mu looked at the approaching thing. The city gate and wall constantly moved up and down, making the thick and sharp spears look like teeth. It sowed doubt in the youth's heart. Is there a need to have such a grand parade to kill a divine arts practitioners of Six Directions realm? Pangong Tso's with his relations shouldn't have been able to mobilize such a huge treasure like Bamboo City. So who is it that wants to get rid of me? He suddenly thought of a person and smiled while muttered to himself. It must be him, the young master of True Heaven Palace. His prey was snatched right under his eyes when I saved Xianxia and her daughter, so he and I can be considered as old friends. Is he planning to give me an unexpected surprise? At that moment, the dragon Qilin howled. "Cult master, this definitely isn't a surprise. This is a shock. Crap." Another huge river lashed out from the mouth of Bamboo City and wrapped itself around Dragon Qilin's tail before pulling him toward the huge mouth. The dragon Qilin clawed furiously with his 4 feet, but he still couldn't prevent himself from being dragged closer to his doom. "Fatty dragon, cut off your tail like a brave warrior," Xianxia said with a solemn face and clear voice. Tears flew down Dragon Qilin's cheeks. "Sister Qia, we won't be able to escape even if I cut off my tail, so let me die with an intact corpse. Although I don't think that's possible either." The gate was like a huge mouth, opening and closing, crunching on anything that came close. Whatever survived it went through the giants, transformed from buildings that were smashing around as they wished, so preserving an intact corpse was something nearly impossible. Cold light flashed on every spear tip, which was as thick as the opening of a bottle. They were like iron bars on top of the city wall. The tips were sharp as swords while the flat sides were filled with strange markings. It was obvious that every spear was a spirit weapon. If one got next to the gates, it would be equivalent to dozens of spirit weapons piercing through their corporeal body and leaving dozens of bowl-sized blood holes in the body. Combining that with the explosive power of the city gate and wall opening and closing, one would most likely become a bloody mess instantly. Still in a daze, Qin Mu said, as expected of the young master of True Heaven Palace. "But he shouldn't have the ability to awaken Bamboo City's spirit, right? His cultivation may be higher than mine, but he's at most on 7 stars realm. Cult Master. The dragon Qilin was still being dragged toward the mouth of Bamboo City. Qin Mu shook off his surprise. His sword pellet suddenly burst forth, and countless sword lights flew out. The 8,000 swords executed wave sword form at the same time. It was an incomparably majestic sight. With treasure swords like clouds circling past the sharp spears of the city, countless teeth of Bamboo City's mouth were instantly sliced apart. The city gate still chomped down heavily, and just with its astonishing biting strength was able to squash the art into a pulp. Qin Mu stretched out his hand to grab his sword. He might not be able to unleash Carefree Sword's divine power, but its sharpness alone could allow him to slice everything apart. Carefree Sword lit up in his hands. Threading the vast movements, Yin and Yang come and go within 2 modes. The power from the first form of Dao Sword exploded, and the sword lights separated in black and white as Yin and Yang stirred up, swirling around each other to form the shape of Taiji. However, it was just the vision caused by the sword skill. The sword skill was actually executing extremely high algebra attainments. What formed every dot and every line of the Taiji diagram had gone through incomparably detailed calculations, and the movement of every sword light contained incomparably complicated algebra calculations. It was the marvel of Dao sect explaining the universe. Bamboo City bit down on it forcefully, and a section of the city wall vanished with the sword light that had black and white replacing each other. Qin Mu rose into the sky and raised Carefree Sword above himself. He used his magic power to hold the sword back as 8,000 swords flew back, overlapping with it. With the child swords fusing into the mother sword, the 8,000 swords combined into one, and Qin Mu instantly felt the sword in his hand becoming incomparably heavy. It was the second form of his sword pellet. It had 2 forms. One was the pellet and the other was the fusion with the mother sword. The weight after fusing made Carefree Sword so heavy that he could no longer use magic power to execute any power of this sword. Qin Mu raised this sword even high, and at that moment he could only do one move. Hacking forward. In front of him, behind the dragon Qilin, was Bamboo City. It had already dragged them past its mouth and was then pulling the dragon Qilin to the street. On both sides of it, the giants of awakened buildings were lined up in preparation to smash them into meat paste. In the center of Bamboo City, even magnificent palaces had stood up. They weren't made out of wood or stone, but had been meticulously constructed from black gold, black iron, and black copper. The divine arts practitioners of West Earth didn't seek to be strong themselves. They borrowed power from the heaven and earth and changed nature itself, gathering black gold and black copper to forge their spirit weapons. The better spirit weapons were forged, the stronger they would be when they awakened. The palaces in Bamboo City were spirit weapons forged by the strongest divine arts practitioners, so their power was on an entirely different league when compared to the wooden and stone houses. The palace giants had stood up to block the end of the street and were overflowing with murderous intent. Such a sight was never before seen or heard. Qin Mu hacked down with this sword, and the tremor that came out from the incomparably heavy Carefree Sword immediately shattered the huge river which had coiled around the dragon Qilin's tail. It was like a huge snake whose tail got severed, and it twisted about, wiggling around in the city. When the sword tip of Carefree Sword touched the street, its incomparably terrifying strength exploded, and the limestone slabs on the street overturned one after another while rising up into midair. An astonishing crack appeared on the street, and it exploded and frantically spread forward. More limestone slabs were flipped up and exploded into pieces in midair. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Flying swords flew out from the tip of Carefree Sword, and Qin Mu's violent vital chi surged into them. They swirled and slashed all around the street. With 8,000 flying swords slicing and cutting everything in their way, everywhere they passed, the giants were left in pieces. When 8,000 swords combined into one, Qin Mu couldn't execute the power of each and every one of them, but when they separated, he could instantly do so. Countless sword lights were circling in wheel-like motion while rushing toward the end of the street among pieces of wood and stone. In an instant, they cut deeply into the palace giants and pierced them. Qin Mu's arms were trembling, for the sword had nearly torn apart all of his muscles. Nearly all of his bones had shattered, and his tendons had nearly snapped. His magic power was also already half depleted. The reason why he had used the first form of Dao Sword and not the first form of Sword Picture when Bamboo City was about to swallow them was because he wanted to save magic power. The amount required by sword treading mountains and rivers was much higher. Yet his slashing motion had instantly depleted close to half of his magic power. However, the result was also brilliant. He razed an entire street with just one slash. He had never expected he could achieve such a powerful force of destruction. Qin Mu let go of Carefree Sword and used his remaining vital chi. Carefree Sword trembled, and the other flying swords flew over from the end of the street. This time, Qin Mu didn't dare to use the second form of the sword pellet. Instead, he collected the 8,000 swords into a circular metal ball. He opened his Taotai sack and put the sword pellet away. He then went into a daze again. I seem to have found a basic sword form that is unprecedented. This sword move isn't in the 17 basic sword moves. The move with which he had slashed downwards earlier had caused countless swords to spin like a wheel as they swooshed out from Carefree Sword with about half of his magic power in an instant. This kind of sword form that spun like a wheel was different from all of the 17 basic sword forms. The most similar one to it was wave sword form, but that one was using the wrist to draw out a circle with the tip of the sword. The sword form that Qin Mu had unintentionally executed, however, could spin like a wheel and had the power of hacking, the technique of pair, and the agility of wave. This was the 18th basic sword form. Within Bamboo City, wooden giants were rushing over, and at the end of the street, the tattered palace giants were raising their circular and yellowish palaces as hammers to smash them against the intruders. The huge rivers in the city surged forth and gathered together, transforming into a huge giant with a water dragon coiled around it. Raising its fists, it came with fists raised as well. Qin Mu was in a daze again. It's just that this basic sword form seems to be too crazy in regards to consumption of magic power. Not only that, it also seems to require a lot of money, for only with plenty of money can one forge these many flying swords. The most crucial point is that the flying swords need to have tips on both ends to maximize the power even more. The dragon Qilin roared fiercely and spewed fire from its mouth. The flame pillars set the street of Bamboo City ablaze, and the wooden giants began to burn. The water giant hurriedly extinguished the fire everywhere, and the water fizzled from the heat. This led to the water giant shrinking down. Qin Mu remained in a daze. But come to think of it, what I have is money. The dragon Qilin grew merciless. He spewed fire in all directions and set the whole city ablaze. He had been chased until he had no place to escape and was dragged into the city. So now his power doubled when paying back his oppressor. Suddenly, Bamboo City gave a strong jerk and became motionless. The house giants, building giants, and palace giants also ceased moving instantly, returning to the ground and transforming back into buildings and palaces. The water giant also collapsed back into the river, becoming running water. Bamboo City quieted down instantly. In the messy street, only Qin Mu, Xianxia, and the dragon Qilin were left. Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 452 Formation Master of West Earth. The dragon Qilin looked around with nervousness, afraid that the buildings, houses, and palaces would revive once again. But Bamboo City was silent, with no other people to be seen in the whole place. Bamboo City should have been a big city with over 100,000 people, but all of them seemed to have vanished without a trace. To make an entire city leave their homes, a person had to possess unimaginable authority. Bamboo City was empty, but for Qin Mu and his group, the city that was more than lively earlier seemed to have suddenly died. But the quieter it was, the more terrifying it felt. Suddenly, the entire city started to tremble violently, and the ground under their feet rose up. The buildings, houses, and palaces sunk downward, and Bamboo City instantly turned into a piece of empty land. The dragon Qilin hurriedly rose into the sky while stepping on fire clouds. Xianxia held tightly onto his mane, looking nervously downward. The city below suddenly split apart, and square stones started to rise from the ground. They overlapped layer by layer to form a square-shaped obelisk which rose up extremely quickly. Within the time span of a breath, A forest of square pillars appeared around Qin Mu and his group. They seemed incomparably small when compared to their surroundings. The pillars were actually moving rapidly, but the changes in formation were hidden. Every time the pillars moved, they would either increase in height or shrink. The square stones would automatically move horizontally or upwards, entering other pillars. There were also some horizontal pillars which hung on the other pillars like beams. Yet the length of those beams was also constantly changing, sometimes increasing and sometimes decreasing. There were clearly roads in front of the group, but the next instant the stone pillars would join together and become an incomparably thick wall. Bamboo City seemed to have revived once again, but it was completely different from the moving city that could swallow all things. Now it was like a three-dimensional space that was constantly changing. Before, Bamboo City had been a huge object that could swallow everything and looked to be extremely dangerous, but it was all bark and no bite, posing no strong threat. However, after it had become three-dimensional and began to operate with the pattern of formations, its threat level had risen drastically. The 6 sides of the squares were imprinted with different rune markings. Even with the shifting and reassembly of the stones, the runes always connected perfectly with the ones in their surroundings. It was the strangest point. The reassembly of the stones was only the outer appearance, while the true danger lay in the runes that were constantly splitting up and merging back. Different patterns created with the runes meant different formations. There were countless stones in the city, and the runes on the stones were different from each other. So there were countless methods to merge them, and the changes in the formation were boundless. Qin Mu immediately saw through it. If they stood still instead of moving, they wouldn't activate the power of the formation, but if they moved the least bit, the power of the formation would be activated. Divine arts of West Earth are incomparably magnificent. Qin Mu exclaimed in admiration to himself. The divine arts of West Earth might not put importance on power like those of Eternal Peace Empire, but their strangeness and wildness made him admire them deeply. He had learned 10,000 spirit nature technique, but he had never put in effort in exploring it. Now, however, Bamboo City had shown him the wisdom of countless divine arts practitioners of West Earth. The free space became smaller and smaller. It was continuously being compressed, and if the city continued like that, it was probably going to become a huge three-dimensional cube. If Qin Mu, Xianxia, and the Dragon Qilin didn't manage to get out, they would naturally be squashed within it. The Dragon Qilin could also see the terrifying points of Bamboo City and immediately began to calculate a path to survival. Since they were facing a formation, there had to be a certain execution process, and within it lay their chance for survival. The transformation of Bamboo City relied on the shifting of stones, so it was where the group's only chance rested. However, it was incomparably difficult to solve the formation. The paths that looked like they would lead to escape soon showed up to be dead ends. If the group had taken them, what awaited them would only be miserable death. The cubic cage of Bamboo City contains an extremely complicated algebra transformation. The Dragon Qilin looked around and his eyeballs continuously rotated like a lantern with a carousel of paper horses while he tried to calculate the movement of all the cubes in the huge formation. He soon started to foam at the mouth from exhaustion, though. He quickly said, "If I was given enough time, I could calculate a path to survival. However, I'm afraid that before I calculate it, we will be squashed to death. Cult Master, do you have any method to calculate a way out?" Qin Mu's eyes flickered, and he said in delight, "I suddenly thought of an idea to deal with Xianxia. If spirits could wake up in his limbs, wouldn't they go out of control? That would make it much easier to kill him." The Dragon Qilin was flustered and exasperated. "Cult Master, we are about to die, but you still have time to think of this?" Qin Mu smiled. "The person controlling Bamboo City has extremely high attainments in algebra and is not inferior to me. If it was a fair fight, I could still defeat him. However, since they schemed against me and took the first move when an opportunity arose, it's very hard for me to solve their formation. By the time I would do it, we would have already been squashed to death." The Dragon Qilin despaired, but Qin Mu didn't seem to share his feelings. He suddenly shouted out, "Senior brother Yu, long time no see. Don't you want to chat with me before I die?" "I don't. I'm scared I will die if I talk too much." Qin Mu could not tell from where Yu Buochuan's voice was coming, but it sounded quite delighted. When dealing with a person like Cult Master Qin, it's best if you die as soon as possible. I can't risk you dying a moment later. Only dead Cult Master Qin is Cult Master Qin that people can trust. Qin Mu's face turned black like charcoal. But Brother Qin can be at ease. If I meet your corpse, I will definitely sit down and tell you about myself. Yu Buochuan laughed happily. Little brother, I have a bad habit, and that's trying my best to get rid of the opponent when I fight them. Only when the opponent dies do I become talkative and have a good chat with their corpse, telling them the reason why they lost to me. I won't make an exemption for Cult Master Qin. Qin Mu sighed ruefully. What a good habit. I'm trapped here and am destined to die under your hand, yet you are still so careful. Truly a wonderful opponent. So this is called meeting your match. I want to do a painting for you in consideration of our friendship that started with appreciating each other's talents. The movements of the stone walls became more and more concentrated, and the cubic cage formed by Bamboo City was also changing extremely fast. Every move contained profound mathematical structure. They became formation structures, and the stone cubes that no longer moved on the outer layer had already become a killing formation, trapping those inside. Slowly, the stone cubes in the inner layers also started to stop moving, becoming killing formations as well. As one layer wrapped around another, it became more and more unlikely that the trio would escape. When the final killing formation was laid out, there would no longer be any way out. If Qin Mu and the rest moved, they would die. If they didn't move, they would also die. Qin Mu chose to stand in his stop. He raised his brush and splashed some ink, then began painting with quick strokes. Stone pillars continuously closed in on them, and the formation changed continuously. Finally, it came right to where they were. When it evolved until its final stage, it became 6 walls which came squeezing toward the center. The 6-sided stone walls continuously pushed forward while giving off loud booms. Finally, the 6 walls collided and immense power burst forth. The formations on the outer layer activated, and the runes on the countless stone cubes lighted up, giving the 6 walls terrifying crushing force. The whole cubic Bamboo City trembled from the collision. Such a strike would it make it hard even for experts of Divine Bridge Realm to escape death, let alone someone like Qin Mu or the Dragon Shilin. Great, truly superb. Yu Buochuan clapped his hands and laughed. Formation Master is still Formation Master after all. This formation is truly unrivaled in the world, and no one is a match for it. Despite Heavenly Devil Cult Master being full of tricks, he could do nothing against Formation Master's formations. He died without any grudge. A woman's voice answered him with insipidness. Young master, you flatters me. I've heard that this Cult Master Qin had once fought with Poison Master Mu Yingxue, who is quite arrogant but had lost to him. This shows that there's something extraordinary about him, but he focused too much on poison and his attainments in algebra and formations are far inferior to mine. I was matching against someone who was inferior to me, so I was able to trap them. Cult Master had no choice but to offer up his head and be executed. Yu Buochuan laughed loudly. He thought Bamboo City could only defeat him with brute force, so he rushed in to show off his impressive skills. But he didn't expect that it was merely a bait set up by Formation Master and ended up in the trap. Formation Master, Poison Master, and Sword Master are the 3 absolutes of our West Earth, and you are all truly extraordinary. Formation Master, please undo this formation. I want to take a look at the painting Cult Master Qin left for me. The sound of swords clashing rang out, and the huge formation of Bamboo City gradually unwound itself. Chunks of huge stone sank into the ground, and the houses and palaces slowly rose from the ground. Not long later, Bamboo City recovered back to normal, and a wall stood where Qin Mu and the rest had been stuck. A painting was hanging there. Yu Buochuan had a smile on his face as he sat on the carriage which drove toward the wall. Behind him followed a crowd of experts from West Earth. There were about 100 of them, and in the lead was a woman. She had a delicate and pretty appearance, and there was a metal cube in her hands. It broke down and turned into metal cubes of all sizes. They then rattled and merged together. The woman was Formation Master He of West Earth, a person who was as famous as Poison Master Mu Yingxue and Sword Master Luo Yinyu. The three masters of West Earth were all girls, and they all had their unique ultimate arts which allowed them to set up an independent regime. Formation Master He Yi ruled Bamboo City and had become famous with her formation skills, which were unrivaled in West Earth. No one was a match for her in formation skills. Even though True Heaven Palace was the sacred ground of West Earth, the three masters had their strong point and weren't subordinate to anyone. However, due to the power of True Heaven Palace, the three masters were slightly fearful of it. If the sacred ground had any requests, they would help. Behind He Yi were the experts of Bamboo City. They were the heads of all the influential families in Bamboo City, and their abilities were strong, much stronger than those of people in Fragrant Bloom City. To be able to set up an independent regime, they were naturally no small fries. Yu Buochuan drove the carriage next to the stone wall. He examined the painting and saw within it were Qin Mu, the dragon Qilin, and Xianxia. They looked remarkably realistic, vivid and lifelike. Yu Buochuan was full of smiles as he laughed to the female disciples of True Heaven Palace. Truly vivid and lifelike. Cult Master Qin's painting is really superb. If he sold paintings, he could be adequately provided. Ha 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 ha. The women in the carriage laughed. It's a pity he's dead. Young master. Take a look. Cult Master Qin is still smiling in the painting. Another female of True Heaven Palace smiled and said, to die in the hands of Formation Master after seeing her perfect formation, this should deserve a smile of no regrets, right? Yu Buochuan laughed loudly and got out of the carriage. With his hands behind his back, he examined the painting on the stone wall. He then said leisurely, Cult Master Qin, let's chat for a bit. Great! Qin Mu in the painting suddenly turned his head around and grinned. I was also thinking of chatting with Senior Brother Yu. Sword Treading Mountains and River. Tales of Herding Gods. Chapter 453 Power of the Devil Cult Master. Yu Buochuan's expression changed drastically, and he retreated in a hurry while shouting, this guy cheated death. Disciples of True Heaven Palace. We can get rid of him by destroying this painting. Numerous women around him immediately went forward and attacked the painting. At the same time, sword light burst forth. It trembled, and a marvelous transformation was witnessed by the crowd. It was no longer sword light, but mountains and rivers flying at their faces. The 10 or so female disciples of True Heaven Palace were instantly drowned out by them. Their elegant bodies seemed to have been frozen in place before scattering like sand. The speed at which the mountains and rivers surged forth was extremely fast and drowned out the carriage in an instant, swallowing Yu Buochuan, who was behind it. Formation Master He Yi didn't move, but astonishment could be seen on her face. Truly superb sword skill. He's not much inferior to Sword Master Luo Yinyu. Behind her, most of the experts of influential families in Bamboo City were stirring, ready to kill Qin Mu, but He Yi raised her hand. No need to help. Young Master Yu has only invited us to lay a formation to hold Cult Master Qin of Middle Earth back. He only asked this from us, so we have no obligation to help him again. Everyone was forced to remain in place. Qin Mu's sword treading mountains and rivers didn't surge toward them, and he said in a low voice, he also shows proper restraint. The power of sword treading mountain and rivers had killed over 10 beauties of True Heaven Palace. Yu Buochuan couldn't help shivering and shouted loudly, Cult Master Qin, why don't we have a chat? His clothes fluttered. Even though he was a man, there were numerous accessories on his body. There were things like silver, jade, and chain bracelets, jade pendants, rings, necklaces, hairpins, and even longevity pendants that all came flying out. They were his spirit weapons, and their power was extremely great. In the end, they weren't made by Yu Buochuan, but were treasures given to him by his elders to stay safe. The spirit weapons had extremely terrifying power. A green dragon hairpin gently trembled and transformed into a green dragon. Its roar reverberated in the air, and a huge hole was blown in the mountains and rivers. Yu Buochuan was delighted and jumped out through the opening. But suddenly, he lost connection with the green dragon hairpin. Next, he lost his sense of the other treasure, and terror filled him. Qin Mu's incomparably intricate sword skill had severed the vital qi connections between him and his treasures. This made him unable to use any treasures even though he had so many of them. Such wondrous sword skill was truly terrifying. Just as he jumped out of sword treading mountains and rivers, he saw the dragon Qilin coming at him with his huge claws. He immediately took off his outer clothes and they floated up against the wind. They grew larger and larger as though they were a piece of cloud. The dragon Qilin's claws struck the clothes, but they were soft and seemed to be empty, and the dragon Qilin sank deeper and deeper into them. Yu Buochuan turned to leave while topless, but he heard a loud roar coming from the dragon Qilin behind him. Fire blazed, and the clothing was burned to ashes in an instant. "Formation Master, save me," Yu Buochuan shouted out. "If I die in your bamboo city, you guys won't be able to escape responsibility." When he voiced his plea, the 100 experts behind Formation Master all frowned. A woman whispered, "Young Master Yu is the son of true Heaven Palace Master, after all. If he dies here, we indeed won't escape responsibility. No matter if it's true Heaven Palace Master or Bago, they both aren't easy to deal with. Formation Master, think thrice." He shook her head. "Don't save." Everyone looked at each other in dismay, not understanding why she was acting like that. "I can't kill Heavenly Devil Cult Master of Middle-earth, but I have already attempted to lay my hands on him and formed a grudge. If I interfere and save young Master Yu, the grudge between Cult Master Qin and me will never be able to be resolved," he said indifferently. "I have long heard about Middle-earth's eternal peace undergoing reforms. They are becoming stronger day by day and have already annexed everything in the 6 directions and swept the 8 wildernesses. The prairie and the snow plains have all been entered into eternal peace. The next target, however, is not Great Ruins, but our West Earth. If true Heaven Palace loses against eternal peace, Heavenly Devil Cult will enter West Earth and it will be our end." Everyone's blood ran cold. But he wasn't done yet. On top of that, as the young master of true Heaven Palace, how could Yu Buochuan not have any methods to protect his life? "Young master, you had chased Nai Kuei to the brink of death, which is not something an ordinary person could achieve." Just as she said that, a jade belt flew out from Yu Buochuan's waist and transformed into a huge snake that bound the dragon Qilin that was pouncing on him. Yu Buochuan escaped in a panic, but sword light suddenly flashed thrice. Yu Buochuan's body separated into 4 sections in midair. His legs were still sprinting forward, but the head froze in a daze. His chest also separated into 2. Qin Mu pulled back his sword. At that moment, Yu Buochuan, who had been severed into 4 sections, fell from the air as 4 chunks of wood. To substitute one thing for another? Qin Mu was astonished. He raised his hand to catch the sword pellet flying out from his Taotai sack, then flung it out forcefully. The 2-feet sword pellet whizzed forward while spinning. The flying swords within it into cold lights that shot into the ground and rushed through it. A human figure burst out from underground, and it was none other than Yu Buochuan. Behind him were the sword lights which had entered the ground to force him out and were chasing him relentlessly. Yu Buochuan raised his head to see the sword pellet coming at his head, and his expression shifted. If he was hit by that unimaginably huge sword pellet, his face would sink into his brain, or even his whole head might sink into his chest. Suddenly, his body transformed into earth and fell from the sky. Layers of formation markings appeared in his eyes as he stared at the ground. His gaze was moving quickly when his arms suddenly trembled. He flew horizontally out of Bamboo City and hit a pile of mountain rocks in front of the city. The pile suddenly exploded, and Yu Buochuan's body appeared among the scattered rocks. "Formation Master, I will kill him outside the city. Consider this giving you room for maneuver." When Qin Mu's voice rang out through the city, he frowned. She raised her head to look into the distance and saw Qin Mu stretching his hand for his knife. Pig slaughtering knife automatically flew up, and he caught it in a reverse grip. The bodies of the 2 youths crossed in midair like 2 spinning tops, exchanging strikes back and forth. Blood light shone, and Qin Mu landed with a head in his hand. Blood was still dripping from the huge knife in his other hand. Thump! Behind him, Yu Buochuan's corpse landed on the ground and bounced twice. Within the city, the faces of Formation Master He and the rest of the experts grew dazed when they looked at the youth carrying the head. Raise the forbidden knife, and the Emperor's head is in his hand. Butcher's knife skills were as bold and haughty as his poems. At that moment, Qin Mu was also haughty and unruly. He had killed Yu Buochuan, who he thought wouldn't die. The young master of True Heaven Palace is dead. The corners of everyone's eyes twitched, and their emotions were incomparably heavy. Cult Master Qin had only brought a dragon Qilin and a little princess, but dared to barge his way into West Earth while killing anyone that blocked his path. After he raised his knife and killed even the son of True Heaven Palace Master, he was truly like a starving tiger overflowing with haughtiness, living up to the reputation of Heavenly Devil Cult Master. It is said that turbulent wind precedes a mountain storm. True Heaven Palace Master and Bago had young Master Yu as their only son, but he died outside Bamboo City. Heavenly Devil Cult Master from Middle Earth's eternal peace was truly ruthless and decisive. As long as he found the smallest opportunity, he would not let it escape and give any hope for his enemies. Wanting to escape alive from his hands was beyond difficult. Only the slippery beings on the level of Roland Golden Palace's Grandmaster could slip through his fingers over and over again. Yu Buochuan's ability to escape was obviously much inferior when compared to that of an old monster who had lived 10,000 years, even if he was the son of True Heaven Palace Master and Bago. He walked out of the city and saw Qin Mu placing Yu Buochuan's head down. He took out a wine jar and poured a cup of wine to put beside his opponent's corpse. You like to chat with a corpse after you killed them. Qin Mu raised his head and gulped down a big mouthful of wine, then placed the wine jar beside Yu Buochuan's head while saying leisurely, "But I don't like it. Not chatting. Farewell." After he said that, he stood up and walked over to He. "Cult Master Qin," He greeted. Qin Mu returned her greeting with a pleasant expression. "Sister Formation Master, how may I address you?" He looked at him strangely, then asked curiously, "Cult Master doesn't know my name? My surname is He and my name is He. He is a big surname is West Earth and I have become erudite through paternal teaching and influence." "So I see," Qin Mu said. "Sister E's attainments in formation skills aren't bad and even I couldn't solve them in a short time. So I had no choice but to use the world in the painting to escape. So Sister E received inheritance from her influential family. Your He family is truly extraordinary in formation skills, so you can be said to be number 3 in the world." Behind He, everyone grew somewhat angry. He family's formation skills were number 1 in the world, which was something everyone knew. Yet when it came to Qin Mu, they became number 3, so how could they not be angry? He looked at Xianxia and seemed to recognize the little girl. She smiled and asked, "I don't care if I'm number 3 or number 1. Cult Master bringing little princess to True Heaven Palace is quite a conspiracy. In my eyes, though, Cult Master is just throwing his life away by going to True Heaven Palace, but you don't look like someone who will just throw away their life. Can you solve this mystery for me? Sister E, do you want to talk here?" He then invited him into the city and to the main hall. Qin Mu sat down there and said in a solemn face, "Formation Master should know why I'm here, right?" He's heart trembled slightly, and she cried out, "You are planning to help Nai Kuei snatch back her position of the Palace Master. Nai Kuei is also here. She's hiding somewhere." Qin Mu laughed softly before shaking his head. "Sister E is holding me under some contempt. My journey this time is under the Emperor's order to enlist West Earth." In the hall, all the masters of the influential families of Bamboo City looked at one another. Under the orders of the Emperor to enlist West Earth. Just Qin Mu alone? He's gaze flickered. Isn't Cult Master Qin's tone too overbearing? What qualifications do you have to annex West Earth? Qin Mu smiled. I'm Heavenly Devil Cult Master, and that itself is a qualification. My Heavenly Devil Cult has 1,000,000 divine arts practitioners, and with a wave of my arm, that 1,000,000 would gather together. With a pointing of my finger, that army of practitioners would raise everything down in their path. Your West Earth has been at peace for far too long, and all your cities and lands do things in their own way. Not to mention the Emperor's martial prowess. Even my heavenly devil cult's million divine arts practitioners would see you as merely chickens and dogs that can't withstand a single blow. He stood up with his hands behind his back. I forged sunshot divine cannon that shot down Jade Sovereign of high heavens. I've subdued Dragon Rearing Sovereign and ordered him to guard Surging River before subduing Bai Shi of high heavens and ordering him to guard 100 Years Mountains. My eternal peace fought at God Broken Mountain and eradicated all the gods of high heavens. His gaze was like lightning when he swept it through everyone. If I wanted to wipe out your West Earth, it'd be as easy as snapping my fingers. Everyone's faces went paper white. Qin Mu smiled then. However, I don't wish for the people of West Earth to be wiped out or even spoil the peace here. If Nai Kuei was to retake the position of Palace Master, she would lead true Heaven Palace to submit to eternal peace. Not a soldier would be mobilized and no lives would be harmed, so what's the harm in putting myself in danger? My safety is not as important as the lives of the people of West Earth after all. Sister E, will you lend me a helping hand? He looked the masters of Bamboo City's influential families and saw that all of them were terrified. She frowned, then a smile blossomed on her lips. Cult Master Qin said that my formation skills are number 3 in the world. So may I ask who is number 1? And who is number 2 as well? E would like to know about it. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 454, Colorful Flowers Gradually Dazzling One's Eyes. Even though he said she didn't care about being first or third, she couldn't deny her own curiosity. In West Earth, she was known as Formation Master, the number 1 in formation skills. However, she didn't dare to insist that she was number 1 in the whole world. However, being the number 1 for so many years, she still had her competitive side. As the cult master of Heavenly Devil Cult, Qin Mu was more experienced and knowledgeable, so she wanted to learn who were the number 1 and number 2 in his eyes. Sister E may not know it, but I'm from Great Ruin's number 1 family in formation skills. Qin Mu's expression was sincere when he said that. The number 1 in formation skills in the whole world is none other than my grandpa Blind. He stared at him with black eyes. He was from Great Ruin's number 1 family in formation skills? The number 1 in formations was a blind man? Does Cult Master Qin have some misunderstandings regarding formation skills? He asked calmly. Formation skills walk the path of algebra, and the simplest is the Palace of 9 Halls. Can Kuin, Zhen, Sun, Zhong, Qian, Dui, Zhen, and Li represent the 9 numbers which are not repeated, and their sum is 45. Slightly harder than this would be the 8 trigrams, changing from octal system to base 64-1, which results in endless transformations. Beyond that would be the 5 elements. 5 elements 8 trigrams have the canary system, octal system, and base 64. The even harder Taiji and Wuji diagrams have no end to their circumference, but no matter how exquisite the calculations are, there will still be flaws. So what attainments can a blind man have in algebra? Sister, look into my eyes, Qin Mu said solemnly. He didn't know what he meant, but carefully observed his pupils. Her mind trembled when she did it. She saw formation markings gradually forming in the eyes of the boy before her, transforming into the first heaven. The mathematical transformation within its formations intoxicated her. But before she could even comprehend it, the second heaven formed, and its mathematical transformation was even more complicated and profound. Next, it was the third heaven, fourth heaven, and only when it came to the fifth heaven, bright heaven's eyes, did the formation skills in Qin Mu's eyes paused. The first heaven of the first layer alone contained attainments in algebra that could be acclaimed as the peak of perfection. Qin Mu's current cultivation was only able to execute 9 heavens eye awakening skill, but the transformations in his eyes had not yet stopped. A sun and stars were born within them. The stars formed into the Milky Way, revolving around the sun at the back. In the main hall, the 100 heads of the influential families looked at each other in dismay. He had almost stuck her face to that of Qin Mu. The two of them looked each other in the eyes as though they were lovers that could not turn their passionate gazes away from one another. Cough, cough. A white-haired old woman finally gave a few coughs to remind their city lord of her decorum. He came back to her senses at that moment, and her face went beet red. She immediately stepped back and said firmly, "This Grandpa Blind can indeed be known as the #1 formation expert in this world. I'm ashamed for being inferior." Qin Mu's face was also slightly red. The closeness had made his heart race. In the past, when I learned eye-awakening skills from Grandpa Blind, I didn't seek to understand the transformation of the formations. Grandpa Blind's divine eyes can see through all fabrications, space, formations, and transformations in techniques. Only after I learned Dao Sect's algebra did I understand the mathematical transformation within them. Dao Sect uses algebra to understand all things in the world and how the universe operates. So the reason why Grandpa Blind's divine eyes can see through everything is because algebra is the truth of this universe. Thus, I came to understand that Grandpa Blind was the #1 person in formation skills. He suppressed all other thoughts and said firmly, "If he wanted to break the formation of my bamboo city, it'd be easy for him. He deserves the reputation of #1. Then who is the #2 expert in the world?" Qin Mu smiled at her with some embarrassment. He stared at him with her black eyes wide open, then cried out, "You are the #2 formation expert?" Qin Mu blushed as he said, "I didn't dare to call myself #2 at first, but after seeing Sister Yi's formation skills, I feel I can still be #2. Rage boiled in Yi's heart, but she gritted her teeth. With a smile, she said, "I don't dare to fight for #1 spot, but I'm not willing to accept being relegated to #3. Cult Master Qin proclaimed that he is #3 in poisoning and defeated Mu Xianxia, making that girl personally admit that her poison is only #4 in the world. Now that you proclaim your formation skills to be #2 as well, isn't that a little weird? Let us have a duel." "What kind of duel?" Qin Mu asked with interest. Yi muttered to herself irresolutely for a moment before smiling at him. "It'll still be about this bamboo city. You will be outside and I will be inside, standing here motionless. If you will be able to enter the city and find me, I will admit that I'm lower than you and accept being #3. Not only that, from today onward, He family and its people will take you as our only guide. If you'll want to support Nai Kuei to retake her position of the palace master, my He family will give all of its support to you." Qin Mu laughed loudly and turned around to walk out of the city. In the hall, the 100 strongest practitioners of Bamboo City looked at one another in dismay. An old woman was about to say something, but Yi waved a hand at her. "No need to say anything else. I will take this chance to observe Eternal Peace's attainments in formation skills. If my formation is broken, Bamboo City will also fall when Eternal Peace invades later on, so why don't we submit to it in advance? If Cult Master Qin can't break my formation skill, we can still fight when the day of reckoning comes. Fall back. Cult Master Qin and I will have a duel to determine the fate of Bamboo City, and maybe even the fate of West Earth." Everyone could only retread from Bamboo City. The city gate was left wide open. Qin Mu had the Dragon Qilin bring out Xianxia. He then walked into the city, and it suddenly changed. All the buildings sank into the ground and vanished without a trace. Chunks of rocks rose into midair, evolving into formations. The appearance of Bamboo City changed tremendously, and in the other people's eyes it was just weird things happening as rocks began shifting in the air. Most people would find it hard to understand the changes in formation from the moving rocks, but Qin Mu understood them, and in his eyes they were magnificent and diverse. Every movement of the rocks gave him an incomparably pleasant impression. Each and every rune was linked, and the infrastructure intertwined, presenting a pleasant sight to him. No matter if it were barriers or killing formations, they were all mathematical reasonings. Formation markings appeared in Qin Mu's pupils, and he walked swiftly forward. Sometimes he would stop and raise his brush to change the formation markings, while at other times, he would move a step forward or stumble 3 steps back like a drunkard. There were also times when springs seemed to have been attached to the bottom of his feet, allowing him to jump here and there among the moving stones. He seemed to be flying gracefully as he passed through some barriers and like he was barging through with brute force at others. Just as it looked like he was risking his life to hit a barrier, the stone wall would suddenly split open before he crashed into it, allowing him to pass. As he wandered unhurriedly while solving the difficult algebra questions, He got closer and closer to the center of Bamboo City. Everything within it was transforming, and even the main hall they were in had broken down and vanished. The only thing that didn't change was He-Yi's location. She stood quietly on a stone pillar and didn't move. She was executing various transformations of Bamboo City and changing all kinds of formations to stop Qin Mu. However, their situation was different from the previous time. Qin Mu had been ambushed at that time and trapped in the city, so it wasn't considered fair. Now that he was barging through the formation at his own speed, it tested whose attainments in formation skills were superior. After some time, He saw Qin Mu's figure getting close and couldn't help growing nervous. She frantically mobilized the huge stones to lay out a new formation, but Qin Mu was still closing in at a steady pace. Where He stood was the center of Bamboo City, and it was also the eye of the formation in Bamboo City. Qin Mu was only 30 yards away from it, and the last layer of formation might not be able to block him. He suddenly gritted her teeth, and Bamboo City suddenly trembled. The formation skills before her were activated, and it became an absolutely fatal situation. The killing formations linked together, and their power multiplied like crazy as they rushed toward He-Yi's location. She activated the last resort formation, which disregarded the concepts of friend and foe. No matter if it was Qin Mu or her, both of them would be swallowed by the killing formation. As formation master of West Earth, He-Yi had inherited the honor of He family and couldn't allow her family's reputation to be harmed. With the title of #1 in formation skills lost, no matter if it was death that would welcome her, she had to protect the honor of He family. Qin Mu's expression changed slightly, and he came to He-Yi's side before the fatal formation could reach them. Grabbing her waist with one hand, he raised a brush and painted in the air with the other hand. He-Yi closed her eyes as the killing formation came rushing over to swallow both of them. When nothing happened, she opened her eyes and saw that they were not in Bamboo City anymore. Instead, they were hidden in the depths of its space. However, when the absolutely fatal formation skills exploded, they tore through the world in the painting and rushed over toward them. The world in the painting in which the two resided at that moment was about to crumble and be destroyed. With a solemn face, Qin Mu's brush moved like dragons and snakes, possessing myriads of changes. Suddenly, He-Yi felt a force around her waist, and she was pulled into another painting. They rushed inside it, and He saw beautiful mountains and rivers with flowers blooming romantically. The scenery was extremely pleasant to the eye. Yet the next moment, the killing formation of Bamboo City crushed that world, and power that could destroy everything rolled toward them. You aren't using formation skills to solve my formation skills. He looked sternly and seriously at this boy beside her. Even if you escape the killing formation of Bamboo City, I won't admit defeat. You are #2 in formation skills, and I'll just not fight with you. Will that do? Qin Mu laughed loudly and splashed his ink like a scholar indulging himself, writing words everywhere. Before Bamboo City's deadliest formation skill could destroy their world in the painting, he brought He into the next world. Resplendent stars occupied the sky there. They were like glowing gems, lighting up the darkness. Qin Mu brought He onto the stars and began sprinting through the starry sky. His brush didn't stop for a moment, and he drew the Milky Way. Behind them was the absolutely fatal formation skill, but ignoring it they jumped into the river and floated far away. The Milky Way went downstream, and Qin Mu held onto He's waist tightly to prevent her from being washed away. When she finally managed to find her feet, she was still in a daze. She saw Qin Mu swinging his brush around and pulling her closer as he jumped onto a newly drawn celestial horse. It sprinted out from the painting and became a reality. It galloped while its wings flapped to increase its speed, and they left the killing formation quite a distance away. Qin Mu raised his brush once again and splashed the ink as much as he liked. A door appeared in front of them, and when it opened, bright rays shone from the other place. The celestial horse carried rushed to the door. He was stunned when she realized that they were on a mountain peak outside of Bamboo City. While still holding her by the waist, Qin Mu jumped off the celestial horse. It flapped its wings and raised its front legs to give a cry before transforming back into ink that fell onto the ground. From the distance, numerous heads of the influential families of Bamboo City hurried over to their side. An elder was about to say something when he smiled and spoke in a gentle tone. I lost. Cult Master Qin's formation skills are number 2 in the world. My family and everyone in Bamboo City will follow him with all our hearts. Qin Mu looked at her with bewilderment. In He's eyes, a trace of tender emotions could be seen brewing, and her gaze was like clear autumn water. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 455, Formation Master's Methods. The huge Bamboo City moved forward while Qin Mu and He stood side by side on its tower. Even though he had seen the strange sight of the city moving by itself, Qin Mu still found it inconceivable. Even though the divine arts of West Earth had not improved in 10,000 years, the ideology of all things having spirit and all things having soul was still extraordinary. When he looked back and saw people walking to and fro through the city, he couldn't help clicking his tongue in wonder. After Formation Master He admitted defeat, she summoned the people of Bamboo City and about 100,000 people returned. The sight of a city bringing so many people across the mountains was unimaginable, yet it was right in front of his eyes. Trying to overthrow Palace Master Yu of True Heaven Palace isn't going to be easy, he said. Besides my family, we also need the support of other influential families. In West Earth, Xiong and Yu families were the 2 most influential families, and their abilities were also the strongest. But Xiong family has already fallen and their position of True Heaven Palace Master was snatched by Yu family. However, there's still Poison Master Mu Yingshua's Mu family, Sword Master Luo Inyu's Luo family, Fang family, Lu family, Gong family, Shi family, Fu family, a total of 10 influential families. Other than that, there's also influential families like those who belong to Guku, Mao Qi, Xianxia whose abilities aren't weak as well. Qin Mu pondered over it before asking, why did Xiong family inherit the position of True Heaven Palace Master? Do other influential families also have this right? Xiong family could inherit the position of True Heaven Palace Master because the first generation True Heaven Palace Master surname was Xian, he said. The successive Palace Masters because of that were usually Xiong. Even though there were situations where other surnames had become Palace Masters, Xiong family would still return back to the position of the Palace Master not long after. It is said that the girl looked at Xiongqia who was beside Qin Mu. It is said that the ancestor of Xiong family had the support of a god, so they could always remain on the seat of the Palace Master. However, this time it's different. It is said that the god was unsatisfied with Nai Kuei, so Yu family was contacted, and that is why it was so easy for them to uproot Xiong family. God? Could it be the owner of that wooden god statue I met in the flaming desert? Qin Mu was still somewhat puzzled, so he asked, since this god always supported Xiong family, why did he suddenly change to Yu family? That will be because of Ba Go, he answered. Ba Go's origin is not ordinary, and rumors say that he is a strong practitioner who came down from the upper bound. It is believed that he brought Yu family in contact with that god. Ba Go. Qin Mu blinked. Ba Go was a term of respect like Nai Kuei. The latter was the mother of the princess while Ba Go was the father of the princess. However, according to his understanding, even though the princess of True Heaven Palace was Xiongqia, her father had died in battle, so the Ba Go he mentioned could only be the husband of Yu family's True Heaven Palace Master. However, True Heaven Palace Master had not given birth to a daughter, so it shouldn't be proper to address him as Ba Go. This Ba Go needed an extraordinary position to be able to contact that god, he said. He's extremely mysterious and rumors say that he came from the upper bound and is the guest of high heavens. He had already been with True Heaven Palace Master, and it is said that she's already pregnant with a child. Ba Go let it spread that the child within her is definitely a girl, who is the princess of True Heaven Palace. Giving birth to a girl would secure one the position of True Heaven Palace Master, which was a rule Qin Mu had never heard about before. However, West Earth honored women and their social customs were quite different from those of eternal peace. Besides, as long as one cultivated divine eyes, it wasn't troublesome to see if the unborn child was male or female. Since Ba Go had confirmed that the child in True Heaven Palace Master's womb was a girl, he would not be wrong. True Heaven Palace Master would definitely give birth to a little princess and sit firmly on her seat. What's the surname of this Bago? You. Qin Mu was stunned. He's also you? What's his relationship with you family? He smiled, but it was an expression lacking warmth. All of us would also like to know what's Bago's relationship with you family. There are many rumors in West Earth. Some say Bago is the ancestor of you family, others that he is the son of High Heaven's Jade Sovereign and that you family originate from there as well. There are many rumors, but the truth is elusive. Qin Mu looked at her with a weird expression. Some say that it was because Xianxia's talent was lacking and she wasn't a strong enough benevolent ruler that her position as palace master was snatched by you family. Yet in my eyes, even though Palace Master Xiong really lacked talent, the true mastermind behind this is still this Bago. Qin Mu nodded. Xianxia was right beside him, but he had no choice but to admit that what he said was right. No matter if it was ability or scheming, the girl's mother wasn't like what a master of a sacred ground should be. She hadn't experienced a lot of scheming and bloody battles before ascending to the position of the palace master at a young age, so it was natural that she couldn't fight against you family and Bago. Even though Qin Mu had also ascended to the position of heavenly devil cult master at a young age, the people who had taught him were the 9 elders of disabled elderly village. Ever since he was young, he had been taught all kinds of crafty plots and machinations, making him sinister and cunning. However, the 9 elders still found him too honest. Because of all that teaching, Qin Mu was able to sit firmly in the position of cult master, with everyone in the village accepting him wholeheartedly. Bamboo City sprinted among the mountains and wilderness, heading toward the west. It didn't head straight for True Heaven Palace, though. They were going to the ancestor ground of He family, Sword River Valley, where their headquarters were located. As an influential family, He family had their own power. Even though it was inferior to that of Yu or Xiong families, it was still a strength that was not to be underestimated. After Bamboo City had sprinted for half a day, they finally came to Sword River Valley when the sun was about to set. Qin Mu looked into the distance and saw a huge river stretching straight ahead like a sword. On its hilts, a city was constructed. There were mountains on 2 sides while walls were arranged along the Sword River to protect the 2 other sides. The city was very intriguing and astonishing to Qin Mu. When Bamboo City reached it, a huge mountain stood up to reveal a path. A long bridge made of stone rose from the bottom of the river as well. And it was stone giants bending over to let Bamboo City step on their backs to cross Sword River. Too marvelous. The world of West Earth is truly a place full of wonderful imagination. Qin Mu couldn't resist exclaiming in admiration. He's gaze was like limpid autumn waters as she smiled gently. If Cult Master Qin likes this place, you don't need to go back. You can always stay here, and will accompany you on scenic tours to visit all the wonders of the world. Qin Mu was delighted. If there was a beauty like Sister to accompany me, how joyful would that be? However, I've too many worldly affairs tying me down. After solving the matter with West Earth, I will have to lay my hands on high heavens to get rid of this future danger. On top of that, there are still a lot of stuff to be done in eternal peace. Why don't we do this? With excitement, he said, after playing in West Earth for some time, why don't you come with me to eternal peace and I'll show you around there, to see the extraordinary points of eternal peace. You might just fall in love with it. He's expression showed interest, but she shook her head. I'm afraid it's not possible. The family still needs me. I can't abandon them. Bamboo City entered Sword River Valley and stopped. At that moment, the lights in all cities and towns of Sword River Valley shone brightly and looked very gorgeous. Even the mountains and the river were lit up. Let's go to the main palace hall. A huge stone floated up to He's feet and picked the 3 of them to bring them to the main palace hall. The heads of my He family will soon come to visit, and I need to prepare. Not long after that, numerous higher-ups of He family came. There were both men and women among them, but the latter were in the majority as they came to pay their respects to He. She invited the numerous higher-ups of the influential families to take a seat while Qin Mu accompanied her. Everyone, this is Cult Master Qin of Heavenly Devil Cult, a sacred ground of Middle Earth's eternal peace empire. Everyone in the hall went into an uproar, and an old woman praised her in a trembling voice. Formation Master is truly extraordinary to have taken down this devil cult master. Now we can ask True Heaven Palace for our reward. Ask for reward? He burst into laughter and shook her head. Palace Master Yu is merely a little slut that schemed and seized the throne. So is she even worthy of taking down Cult Master Qin? Pardon my honest words. If not for Ba Go supporting her, could she have ever gained the position of the Palace Master? Her womb failed to live up to expectations and could only give birth to a son. She can't even give birth to a daughter, so how good could she be? Everyone in the hall looked at each other in dismay. He glanced at Qin Mu, and he smiled. Holding Xianxia's hand, he said loudly, "Senior sisters of He family, this is the little princess of True Heaven Palace." He smiled and added, "The little princess of True Heaven Palace is right here, so Palace Master Xiong is not far away. If my He family can assist Palace Master Xiong in getting rid of the little slut of you family and helping her reclaim the position of the Palace Master, wouldn't that surpass the reward of turning Cult Master Qin in by 100 times? Everyone, you are the elders of the clan. What do you think?" Everyone in the hall became silent. The men of He family didn't dare to speak, but the women were very daring. One started to protest. "Formation Master, think thrice. You family is at its peak right now, so how can we He family be its opponent? What's more, Ba Go is supporting her." "Well said." He chuckled. "That's why we will be allying ourselves with Heavenly Devil Cult. With its assistance, why should we be scared of you family? If you think this is not enough, we'll ally ourselves with Mu and Luo families. I believe that they also have the sense of propriety, justice, integrity, and honor, and won't accept you family for long." Another middle-aged woman suddenly rose and said angrily, "Now that you family is in control of True Heaven Palace, how great is their power? Formation Master, even though you are the head of this household, I see that you have truly gone crazy. Formation Master, think thrice before acting." Another old woman stood up and propped herself on her cane. "Don't gamble the fate of our He family on the table." After her, another said righteously, "The 10,000 years of our He family's foundation can't be destroyed in an instant. If Formation Master insists on this, then hand over the position of the head of the household." "That's right. Hand over the position of the head of the household." He looked around and said with a pleasant expression, "Which other elders have opinions? Feel free to speak, since this is an internal affair of our clan, and you are all my aunts, grannies, and great-grandmothers. I'm of a younger generation, so we should discuss this." A couple more elders stood up to criticize her then. He waited for a moment to make sure that no one else would come out to object, then smiled. "Seems like everyone has forgotten how I became Formation Master, the head of this household." The faces of everyone who had stood up changed. Before they could rush out of the main hall, cages popped out from the ground of Bamboo City, capturing all who had spoken against He. The cages then sank back into the ground. He patted her hands and smiled. "After I get rid of you family, I'll let all of you out. Do the other elders have any opinions?" Everyone in the hall stood up and bowed while saying in unison, "We'll take Formation Master as our only guide." He looked at Qin Mu and smiled. "How are my methods, Cult Master Qin?" He smiled back at her. Sister E is an unusual woman. He's gaze wandered, and there was a hint of bashfulness in her voice when she said softly, "Tonight, my window won't be closed. If you climb in, we can talk about formation skills the whole night and delve deeper." Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 456, Old Schemer. On that night, when it was silent, He heard knocking on the window and grew flustered. She hurriedly opened the window and saw Qin Mu behind it with a smile. "Sister E, I climbed here only after making sure that no one was around." He's heart throbbed violently at the sight of her lover under the candlelight. Her heart became like a frisky monkey, and mind like a cantering horse. And then, both of them talked about formation skills the whole night. Before the sun was about to rise, Qin Mu secretly slipped out through the window, since he knew it was the rule of West Earth. Those who went for visiting marriage couldn't meet the woman's family. But Qin Mu didn't even manage to get downstairs before meeting a couple women who had woken up early. They immediately turned their heads away and acted as if they didn't see anything. Only after Qin Mu had walked a distance away did they laugh softly. When the sun was high up in the sky, He was reluctant to part with Qin Mu and send him out of Sword River Valley. Just our He family alone is not enough to do anything against True Heaven Palace, so Cult Master should go and see Poison Master. I'll meet the other heads of influential families in West Earth to discuss this major event together. Qin Mu bade her farewell and left. He saw him off with some disappointment. A girl at her side laughed softly. Did sister do it with brother-in-law Qin? Quite a few people saw him climbing through the window, and some also saw him climbing downstairs in the morning. He was sleepy-eyed and her vigor seemed to be lacking. She said angrily, "Do what? We talked about formation skills the whole night." Other girls came up and chattered with smiles. Talk about formation skills, is that your excuse? The night was long yesterday, and you were naturally like a pair of mandarin ducks flying together. He ground her teeth so much they made a noise. The girls jumped in shock. You really talked about formation skills the whole night with brother-in-law? He looked at them helplessly. He was so excited. So what could I do? Force him? Does he family still want face? If I really used force, wouldn't we wreck the whole place with our fight and tear down this bamboo city? I could only talk the whole night with him about formation skills, but luckily his knowledge and experience were extremely extraordinary. We sank into exploring the formation skills to the point that I forgot to show affection and simply thought that the night was too short. Thinking about it now, I feel we could have done something first before exploring the path of formations and exchanged pointers. The girls looked at one another in dismay. A man and a woman spent the night in one room and they really talked about formation skills the whole night? Truly horrible, worse than a beast. Then why is sister allowing brother-in-law Qin to go look for Poison Master, that little hussy? One girl asked daringly. If Mu Yingxue isn't reserved like sister and snatches brother-in-law, what will you do? He sneered at her. Unless Lassie Mu uses force, everyone can forget about taking advantage of him. Ever since Lassie Mu lost to him, she couldn't forget about him and her amorous feelings kept undulating. She always fights with me, so if she found out that I lost, she would definitely make fun of me. So why don't I let her suffer a setback as well so it shuts her mouth? The girls greatly admired her words. Sister is wise. Qin Mu brought Xianxia to the Dragon Qilan's back, and they headed to Thunder Mountain City, where Poison Master Mu Yingxue lived. Big brother, are we not going to True Heaven Palace? Xianxia asked curiously. I plan to go there, but so far there has been no news of Imperial Preceptor and your mother. I suspect. The corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched and he sneered. Imperial Preceptor, that old schemer, hasn't shown his face from beginning to the end, and now I see what he wants to do. He is definitely waiting for me to create a huge ruckus and attract the attention and the main force of True Heaven Palace. Then he will achieve victory amid the disorder. That old schemer. I knew there was something wrong about him personally running over to my Heavenly Saint Academy to invite your mother to West Earth before asking me to join as well. He raised his head and examined the surroundings. There were a couple of white clouds following them in the sky, and he immediately said to the Dragon Qilan, Fatty Dragon, we are being watched again. The Dragon Qilan was frightened and immediately began to run faster. The speed of the white clouds also suddenly increased, but after a moment, the Dragon Qilan left them in the dust. Qin Mu noticed that not only were the white clouds chasing them, even the water of Sword River suddenly flowed in reverse. The waves moved like dragons, but they still couldn't catch up to them. Qin Mu looked with puzzlement at it. The divine arts practitioners were probably the strong practitioners of True Heaven Palace. Its tracking methods were indeed unmatched, and if they got seen, it would be hard for them to shake them off. Yet how did Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, that old schemer, had known that he would attract a lot of attention after he entered West Earth? Even pulling out True Heaven Palace's forces? He was clearly very low-key and knew his place, so how did that schemer had known that he would become the biggest target of True Heaven Palace? Imperial Preceptor is an old fox. Qin Mu took a look at Xianxia and instantly knew who was the real target. According to his understanding gained in the past couple of days, West Earth placed great importance on the little princess, and True Heaven Palace needed to have one to sit firmly in its seat. Since Qin Mu was bringing along Xianxia, the little princess, with him, how could it not make him the biggest target? Xianxia was nothing to worry about while Xianxia was the target of True Heaven Palace Master. In the past, the target Yu Buochuan had pursued wasn't Xianxia, but Xianxia. Qin Mu still remembered why he had saved Xianxia and her daughter. It was because when he saw Yu Buochuan bullying a 4-5-year-old girl like Xianxia, he really couldn't bear to watch it and risked his life to save them. But when he thought of it now, Yu Buochuan had wanted to kill Xianxia not without a reason. Why does True Heaven Palace place such importance on a little princess? He couldn't help feeling bewildered and squatted down. He grabbed Xianxia's shoulders and flipped her around a few times, but he didn't see anything special about her. This made him even more puzzled. Nai Kuei was True Heaven Palace Master, and the title's meaning was the mother of the princess, while the father was called Ba Go. These two names originated from the little princess, which showed how high True Heaven Palace valued the little princess. There had to be a reason for that. Xianxia looked at him with her big eyes blinking innocently. She didn't look like she had any special ability. Suddenly, Qin Mu focused on her little backpack and was stunned for a moment. Xianxia had always carried it with her, all the way from Heavenly Saint Academy to there. He had always thought that it held her clothes and didn't pay any attention to it. Now he was curious about that small backpack. "Cheer, what do you have in that backpack of yours?" Qin Mu asked. Xianxia took it down and opened it up, causing green light to shower Qin Mu's face. He sighed. As expected. Imperial Preceptor, that old schemer. The green dragon bead lay quietly in the girl's backpack. It was green like jade as well as sparkling and translucent. A dragon's soul gently swam inside it. When Qin Mu grabbed the dragon bead, the dragon's soul looked at him with disdain, but when he let Xianxia touch it, the green dragon's soul looked at her with friendliness. It gently touched her hand from within the bead. The innocence of the child is the best material to cultivate 10,000 spirit nature technique. Qin Mu sighed ruefully. The reason why True Heaven Palace needed a little princess was mainly because of her innocence. Without any impure thoughts, she would be able to control a treasure like Green Dragon Bead and unleash its power to the extreme. In True Heaven Palace, there were 3 more treasures which represented Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, and White Tiger. The person who could unleash the power of all those treasures would only be the little princess of True Heaven Palace. The most powerful person in that sacred ground was never Nai Kuei or the other strong practitioners. It was the little princess which was without the strength to truss a chicken. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor and Xianxia had gone first to West Earth, but leaving Green Dragon Bead to Xianxia would have definitely not been Xianxia's idea, but that of Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. Xianxia felt that Imperial Preceptor was unreliable, so she asked Qin Mu to bring Xianxia with him. Never would she have expected that she would fall for Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's scheme and let Qin Mu and Xianxia become the targets of True Heaven Palace. Meanwhile, Imperial Preceptor and her could borrow the cover provided by them and execute their plans in secret. Imperial Preceptor needs a smack on the ass. He is a heavenly king of my heavenly saint cult, so how does he dare to scheme even against his own cult master? Qin Mu sighed and roused his spirit. At that moment, the dragon Qilin suddenly stopped and said, "Cult master, there's something." Qin Mu looked forward and saw mountains stretching into the distance. Black coffins hung off the cliffs. They nearly covered them whole, making the whole mountain body black. He quickly counted the coffins and realized that they numbered somewhere around 3,000 to 5,000. This is a corpse raising ground. He opened Cinnabar Heaven's eyes to look and instantly saw sinister wind blowing in waves while dark clouds shrouded the mountains. The place was indeed suitable to raise corpses. According to the geographic map of West Earth, they were in Lower County, which was about 800 miles from Thunder Mountain City. Lower County was the territory of West Earth's Lu family. This corpse-raising ground is in the territory of Lu family? Does that mean they're its owners? Qin Mu suddenly remembered that corpses had no spirit nor soul. So wouldn't they be a good material for West Earth's divine arts practitioner to awaken spirit? The bodies of divine arts practitioners had been through the vicissitudes of life and far surpassed spirit weapons in power. On top of that, they had 4 limbs and may even be able to execute divine arts in battle, so they might be even more useful than spirit weapons. Rise and get rich! Suddenly, a shout could be heard, and Qin Mu looked toward the source of it. He saw a few men with embroidered headbands chanting phrases while executing divine arts of West Earth. A black coffin suddenly grew legs and pushed itself off the cliff as though it was flying, then landed with a thump. Creak. The coffin opened up and a woman hopped out. Her neck turned around stiffly, and she looked at Qin Mu. Are you perhaps Heavenly Devil Cult Master from Middle Earth? Qin Mu was astonished. He actually couldn't tell if the woman from the coffin was dead or alive. That's me. May I ask who you are? Lu Ruyan of Lu family. The woman landed on the ground. I've heard that Cult Master has brought the little princess to West Earth. Where is she? Qin Mu raised Xianxia's hand and smiled. The little princess is right here. Lu Ruyan looked at Xianxia, and the light in her eyes shone brightly. The smell of decay instantly torrented into the sky, and numerous black coffins grew legs to sprint down the cliffs. There were even coffins floating in the sky which creaked loudly as they opened up. Numerous corpses, whose state of being Qin Mu couldn't determine, sat up and rushed at Xianxia. Qin Mu stretched his hand and took out green dragon bead from the girl's small backpack and stuffed it into her hands while saying indifferently, Lu Ruyan, your Lu family seems to have ill intentions. When Lu Ruyan saw the green dragon bead, she couldn't help covering her face and giving off a miserable shriek which was filled with terror. Don't be reckless. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 457, God Burial Valley's Lu family. Xianxia hugged green dragon bead, since it was quite big. It was the size of an adult's fist. She was too young and it took her some effort to carry it. Qin Mu saw Lu Ruyan's actions and instantly knew that his guess was right. The green dragon bead truly needed a pure and innocent little girl to unleash its full power. It was no wonder then that West Earth placed so much importance on the little princess. Lu Ruyan covered her face with a sleeve so only one eye was showing. It was ghastly white and only had a black pupil the size of a soybean. It was truly strange. Cult Master, don't be mistaken. Behind Lu Ruyan, explosions rang out without end as the corpses, that were possibly dead or alive, fell back into the coffins which closed automatically. Lu Ruyan also jumped back into her coffin and lay down with a chuckle. We just wanted to see if the little princess was fine. Now that we see the little princess is safe, Ruyan is at ease. Farewell. The coffins grew legs once again and were running up the cliffs. Master of the House Lu, please wait a minute, Qin Mu suddenly said. Lu Ruyan, who had been about to close her coffin, stopped when she heard his words. She straightened her body and forced out a smile. Cult Master, give us a way out and don't be ruthless. Her voice was trembling, and it seemed like she was extremely terrified. Qin Mu was bewildered. Wasn't it just the green dragon bead Xianxia was holding on to? But even though she could unleash its power, it should not be too terrifying. Did Lu Ruyan and the rest really need to be that terrified? Master of the House Lu, you guys have come on the orders of True Heaven Palace? Qin Mu asked with a pleasant expression. Since it's on orders, there should be experts of True Heaven Palace in your clan, right? I would like to meet them. So could Master introduce them to me? Lu Ruyan was slightly stunned. Qin Mu's face was warm like the spring wind when he smiled. Master of the House Lu might not know, but I've no ill intentions for West Earth. I'm just here to see the local situation and customs. The reason I brought the little princess is simply because she's a person of West Earth and is more familiar with the geography. Familiar with the geography of West Earth? Lu Ruyan blinked at him. Xianxia was around 6 years old and had lived in True Heaven Palace ever since she was young. The only thing she might be familiar with would only be the geography of her home, so how could she have any memory of West Earth's geography? Letting Xianxia lead the way was no different from a blind man touching an elephant. This cult master Qin from Middle-earth Shore has a way with lies. Lu Ruyan's next words were chosen carefully. Cult master Qin. A strong dragon cannot suppress a snake. Even though your background is enormous, my Lu family is not to be trifled with as well. Be careful of a life and death struggle. Qin Mu looked at her with astonishment. What is Master of the House Lu saying? I just want to see the senior sister of True Heaven Palace and resolve the misunderstanding between us. I have no ill intentions. If I really was thinking like that, I would have already asked the little princess to activate Green Dragon Bead. And do you think you guys would have been able to escape? Lu Ruyan's face flickered between dark and clear. However, Qin Mu's patience was extremely good. He just stood there and waited for her reply. He didn't speak a word, and the corpses in the coffins also didn't dare to move. After a moment, Lu Ruyan chuckled and said, Since Cult Master Qin had said so, how can I go against it? Cult Master, please enter my coffin and let me bring you to Lu family to meet the senior sisters of True Heaven Palace. I wonder if Cult Master will have the courage. Qin Mu smiled at her. What's the problem? After saying so, he picked up Xianxia and jumped off the dragon Qilin's back before coming next to Lu Ruyan's coffin. When he looked inside, he couldn't help becoming stunned. The coffin didn't look big from the outside, but the internal space was astonishing. Its length and width were over 30 yards, and even the height was 15–18 yards. It was like a huge house. On top of that, there were also tables, chairs, and even a jade bed. It was split into a few rooms, and there were dining and living spaces. There was even a place for a servant to live, which made it no different from a small and delicate palace. Qin Mu clicked his tongue in wonder. When Lu Ruyan had jumped out of the coffin, he had risen in shock. He thought that a zombie had jumped out, never having expected that it would actually be her living space. He looked at the other black coffins and wondered, could all of them be like that? All places where the disciples of Lu family live. These coffins that grew legs to walk by themselves seem to be as wonderful even if they're using different methods which lead to the same result as Sister Yi's moving city. Fatty dragon, you can also come in. Qin Mu turned back to smile at him. The dragon Qilin seemed slightly hesitant and shook his head. Cult Master, I'm a bit superstitious, so I won't go in. Qin Mu scolded him with a laugh, then brought Xianxia into the coffin, leaving the dragon Qilin outside. Lu Ruyan closed the coffin with a bang, and they immediately left with the coffins striding forward. Some of them even floated into the sky, escorting Lu Ruyan's coffin across the mountains. The dragon Qilin followed after them, and after crossing a few mountains, he saw a huge mausoleum among the mountains. Numerous black coffins of Lu family were floating around it like black boats in the sky. They formed a line to enter the huge mouth of the mausoleum. The dragon Qilin shuddered as he complained in his heart. However, he still braced himself to enter the mausoleum with the coffins. In the coffin, Qin Mu sat with Xianxia in his arms. Lu Ruyan sat opposite of him, and the two of them looked at each other silently. The atmosphere was solemn. Suddenly, Qin Mu smiled and said, Master of the House Lu, who is the chief of your Lu family? The black pupils that were the size of soybeans in Lu Ruyan's eyes swirled and returned back to ordinary size. She smiled back at him. Cult Master Qin is an outsider, so you don't know about my Lu family. I'm its head. Qin Mu was astonished. In that case, it was correct of me to call you Master of the House Lu just now. Sister Ruyan, your Lu family's technique is very strange. When I saw you guys just now, I thought you were all corpses. Can you tell me the reason why you're doing this? Lu Ruyan couldn't help feeling a warmth well in her heart and threw a glance at him with joy she couldn't contain. Your mouth is really sweet. The people of other clans, especially the men, which of them would dare to be so sweet when they see me? It's already fortunate if they aren't scared to death. Some of those stinky men piss their pants in terror while the souls of some scatter into nothingness. Cult Master, on the other hand, can still have a pleasant chat and call me sister. Xianxia was bewildered and thought to herself, Big Brother seems to call every woman he meets sister. The corpse air around Lu Ruyan's body became fainter, and she smiled. The technique of our Lu family is different from the basic one. None of us actually had the surname Lu when we were alive, and only after we died did we become Lu. Qin Mu's heart trembled and he cried out, "You're all!" My West Earth's Lu family has an extremely ancient background, which started when a spirit was born from a corpse. Rumor says that Lu family's ancestor was buried under a willow tree, but soon, spirituality was born in the corpse, and he took the surname Lu. Because we are born from corpses, our corporeal bodies are dead and we can't give birth. However, we have a lifespan, and once our spirit's time is up, our souls scatter. The people outside say that our Lu family is weird and don't interact with outsiders. But they are mistaken. It's not that we aren't willing to interact with the outside, but that we are all spirits born from corpses, so we are scared of being captured to be turned into spirit weapons. When the experts of True Heaven Palace asked you to deal with me, you guys agreed. Could True Heaven Palace have the ability to take down your Lu family and refine you guys into spirit weapons? Qin Mu asked in a cold voice. Lu Ruyan's face changed slightly. Qin Mu laughed loudly and his expression became pleasant again. He smiled. Sister Ruyan, for you to be able to become the chief of Lu family, your cultivation surpasses mine by far, so how can you still be scared of me? Little brother is really just bragging and only knows how to scare people. I'm actually not confident at all. Lu Ruyan let out a sigh of relief and smiled back at me. You really gave sister a scare. What's Cult Master Qin's cultivation? I'm only on 6 Directions realm. Can sister be at ease now? Qin Mu said honestly. Lu Ruyan was indeed at ease, but she was still worried about the green dragon bead in Xianxia's hands. That item was the biggest nemesis of Lu family. When the power of this dragon bead was executed, no matter how strong the experts of Lu family were, they wouldn't be able to contend against it. The reason why Lu family had submitted to True Heaven Palace was because of green dragon bead. Sister Ruyan, who are the ones that came from True Heaven Palace? What's their cultivation? The person that came is the elder of True Heaven Palace's Yu family. Yu Rui, Lu Ruyan said. The experts of Yu family are on life and death realm, and they are all extraordinary. Qin Mu nodded gently. The people in West Earth didn't really see cultivation realm as important since 10,000 spirit nature technique didn't rely on cultivation to achieve victory. It instead relied on comprehending nature and heaven and earth. The purer were one's thoughts, the stronger their senses would be, and then they would be even more likely to communicate with the heaven and earth. Of course, the higher the cultivation, the stronger the creation divine arts would be. Cultivation was also extremely important to one's ability, but to the people of West Earth, the senses and comprehensions in regards to nature were the most important. Sister Ruyan should be at ease now, right? Qin Mu smiled. That sister is on life and death realm while I'm only on 6 Directions realm. Sister Ruyan, if Sister Rui wants to kill me, you will have to protect me. Lu Ruyan gave a troubled expression and said reluctantly, You Rui and I are friends, and I can only assure you that she won't touch you in God Burial Valley. As for outside it, I can't guarantee the safety of Cult Master. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and said his thanks. Thanks for the trouble, sister. What kind of place is God Burial Valley in which you guys live? Lu Ruyan smiled. We are at God Burial Valley now. Cult Master Qin, please go out of the coffin. The coffin opened, and Lu Ruyan brought him out to look around. They were in an underground world that stretched in all directions. There were sun, moon, and stars in the sky of the mausoleum, and in the surroundings, there were passageways leading to tombs of all sizes. There were numerous coffins entering and exiting them. A small coffin floated over, and its lids flipped open to reveal a little girl inside. While sitting on the coffin's edge, she said, Mother, who is this? Qin Mu looked over with doubt at Lu Ruyan. The woman looked at the child with sadness, then said softly, This is my little darling. She died with me, and we were both awakened by an elder, so we came to live here. Let's not talk about this. Didn't you say that you want to meet Yu Rui? Let me call her over and introduce her to you. I might just be able to resolve the misunderstanding between you. Little darling, stay here to accompany Big Brother. The girl acknowledged her words sweetly and examined Qin Mu with curiosity. Qin Mu didn't dare to underestimate her. Even though the little girl was the daughter of Lu Ruyan, their spirits were awakened at the same time, so her cultivation realm was probably the same as that of Lu Ruyan. They were both great experts on life and death realm or divine bridge realm. He looked toward the center of God Burial Valley and saw a golden coffin standing upright there. It was heavily covered in thick chains and full of yellow joss papers. All kinds of runes were written on them. Who is in this coffin? Why is it locked? Qin Mu asked curiously. Mother said that a god whose corpse has already become a spirit lies there. However, everyone is afraid of them committing evil, so they locked them up. I see. Qin Mu smiled and looked down. Little darling, let me perform some magic for you. After saying that, he took out a huge jade eye. This eye of mine can shine. The little girl looked up at him with excitement. How will it shine? At that moment, Lu Ruyan's voice reached them. Rui, that is Cult Master Qin. If you have any misunderstandings, I don't mind being the peacemaker. The voice of another girl came, followed by chuckles. Resolve our grudges? That's good. He just needs to hand the princess over and the grudge will be resolved. At that moment, snow-white light suddenly tore through the dimness of God Burial Valley before disappearing in a flash. Qin Mu's laughter rang through the underground world. How was it? It shines, right? Lu Ruyan was stunned for an instant. She then saw Yu Rui beside her with a horizontal mark over her stomach, which split her into two the next moment. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 458. Chop and Change. Bastard! The moment Yu Rui died, the whole Lu family was alarmed, and the black coffins opened with continuous bangs. Strong figures rose into the air one after another. There were even a few coffins that opened up without anyone being inside them. Instead, terrifying pulses came from within them while divine lights churned inside. Even if no strong practitioners showed their faces, it was still very shocking. Even though Lu family didn't reveal its full strength, it was still one of the 10 most influential families in West Earth, and so its abilities were no small matter. God Burial Valley was Lu family's sacred ground, so once Qin Mu got rid of Yu Rui within it, the event touched upon Lu family's taboo. In addition to that, the one that had died was a strong practitioner of True Heaven Palace, which would of course anger the host family. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Figures surrounded Qin Mu, and the wind instantly became full of sinister cold. The figures flickered as they stood in the dark clouds, their faces impossible to see. It was hard to say if they were human or ghost. Just as one figure was about to tear the arrogant youth apart, it saw the green dragon bead in Xianxia's hands and stopped, not daring to go forward. Everyone stop, Lu Ruyan ordered in flustered exasperation. All of you stop moving. She turned her head to look at Qin Mu and saw him stuffing a huge jade eye into his taotai sack like nothing of concern had happened. Her daughter was clapping her hands in delight, wanting Qin Mu to do it again. Lu Ruyan felt a splitting headache. When she looked at Yu Rui's body next to her, her head ached even more. Her original intention was to let Qin Mu and Yu Rui meet, and that's it. No matter if they could come to peace or if they insisted on fighting, they would have to do it outside Lu family's grounds. She only needed to be careful of Yu Rui and not let her kill the youth. As for Qin Mu, the big boy who was only a divine arts practitioner of Sixth Direction Realm, she didn't need to mind him at all. She would have never expected that such a simple plan could have such a hiccup. Just as Yu Rui showed herself, she was sliced apart by Qin Mu the scoundrel, and he still acted like he knew nothing. It was truly hateful. Cutting Yu Rui apart was fine, but the crucial point was that it had been done in God Burial Valley, which would make Lu family look disloyal. If True Heaven Palace decided to punish it, could Lu family take it? However, sending this scoundrel Qin to True Heaven Palace can still redeem us of our crimes. Lu Ruyan blinked while looking ahead. However, Green Dragon Bead is in the little princess's hands, so she can't be offended. At that moment, a fragrant wind blew over, and the other women of True Heaven Palace floated over. When they saw Yu Rui's corpse on the ground, they couldn't help growing furious and shouting sternly, Lu Ruyan, what's this? Lu Ruyan's head began to ache even more. This was done by Cult Master Qin from Middle Earth. It had nothing to do with my Lu family. One of the women shouted at her sternly. Nothing to do with your Lu family? Lu Ruyan, it's easy for you to say that, but the one who died is the elder of my true heaven palace. Your Lu family can forget about shirking responsibility. Another woman stepped forward with fierceness. Chief Lu, if your Lu family still wants to live, quickly take down that Qin boy and hand him over to True Heaven Palace. Palace Master can then consider old affections and not give too much trouble to you. Otherwise, the entire Lu family is probably going to be eradicated and removed from the books forever. As Lu Ruyan ground her teeth, Qin Mu's voice reached her ears. It was filled with curiosity. Sister Ruyan, didn't you say that only you Rui had come from True Heaven Palace? I thought she was alone. Who are these sisters? Lu Ruyan gave him a harsh stare and sneered. I said someone called you Rui came from True Heaven Palace, but I didn't say that she was alone. I had also told you that a few senior sisters had come from True Heaven Palace. Didn't I? Qin Mu quickly came to a realization and smiled. I was reckless. I thought killing one sister would be enough. Lu Ruyan was furious and said coldly, Cult Master Qin, now that you have killed the elder of True Heaven Palace and spoiled the relationship between my Lu family and True Heaven Palace, come teach me. What should I do? Qin Mu rose and smiled at her. Sister Ruyan, I just came from He family and Sister Yi is currently planning to gather all the influential families to discuss how to overthrow the True Heaven Palace Master who only managed to ascend to the throne by relying on a rebellion. She keeps doing things all wrong, angering the heavens and the people. Once you family grows strong, your Lu family will be only food for its table. Just you Rui and these couple sisters can make your entire Lu family become docile. Since you family could kill the whole Xiong family, barely leaving one mother and daughter, aren't you guys worried? Lu Ruyan was frightened. Qin Mu's words were logical. Once you Rui had died in Lu family's grounds, True Heaven Palace wouldn't let it go easily. Lu family would definitely be implicated, and even if they didn't die, they would still have to offer numerous treasures to True Heaven Palace as offerings. And Lu family's greatest treasure was their corpses. However, Qin Mu, that scoundrel, clearly had bad intentions and purposely dragged Lu family down with him to fight True Heaven Palace together. However, he said that he was gathering all the influential families for discussion, and this moved Lu Ruyan's heart. Yu family held no affection from anyone and had been ruthless when dealing with Xiong family, nearly killing every single person within it. Even though Xiong family had always taken the position of palace master and attracted other influential families' envy, it was still considered fair in handling matters. However, Yu family was different. Xiong family had a population of 1 million people and possessed great power, but Yu family had actually eliminated them completely, with only Xiong Shiyu and her daughter being able to escape West Earth. The others were all gone. This wasn't as simple as being ruthless. If we could make use of this chance to overthrow Yu family. Lu Ruyan looked at Qin Mu and hesitated. The other experts of Lu family were furious, but there was also quite a number who were thinking about Qin Mu's suggestion. He smiled and said, Sister Ruyan, Xiong family is only left with an orphan and a widow. Even if Xiong Shiyu retakes the position of the palace master, how can they rule West Earth with just the two of them? Won't she have to borrow the power of your influential families? If Yu family remains as the head of True Heaven Palace, you guys won't have any say in its dealings. However, the day Xiong family retakes its seat, it will be the day when all of you influential families will become part of True Heaven Palace. Lu Ruyan made her decision and looked at the little girl beside Qin Mu. Little darling, what's your opinion? The little girl smiled and said, Since Mother has already decided, why are you asking me? Mother can make the decision. Qin Mu looked at the little girl who looked almost the same age as Xiong Qier and was extremely astonished. He immediately pulled Xiong Qier into his arms and moved a distance away. The little girl was definitely not simple. Lu Ruyan hadn't asked the opinion of the elders of Lu family or the coffins who were giving off divine lights, but had instead inquired about the little girl's thoughts. This showed that the little girl was definitely a crafty and sinister person who was probably the brains of Lu family. She smiled at him sweetly. I was originally stuck between whether to rebel against the Yu family or not, and Cult Master was a great help in helping me decide. To the side, Lu Ruyan looked at the women of True Heaven Palace and burst out laughing. Senior sisters, don't worry. After all of you die, we will awaken the spirits inside you. As for whether you will be the ones to wake up, I can tell you for certain, it will definitely not be you. Everyone, send these senior sisters of True Heaven Palace on their way. The women of True Heaven Palace cussed and tried to fight back, but even if their abilities were extraordinary, it was difficult for them to escape death in God Burial Valley. An elder of True Heaven Palace tried to undo the sealed golden god's coffin, wanting to use the corpse within it to deal with the experts of Lu family. But just as she undid one seal, divine light suddenly burst forth from one coffin and poured into her orifices. Her primordial spirit was instantly dissolved and only a corpse remained. Qin Mu couldn't help shivering. The abilities of Lu family were extremely terrifying. If it wasn't for Xianxia hugging Green Dragon Bead, it would have been hard to suppress them. What was even more bone-chilling to him was the girl that had looked harmless. Lu Ruyan had asked her to stay with him, which had seemed a spur of the moment, but was actually full of pre-planning. If the little girl had suddenly landed a fatal blow, Qin Mu and Xianxia could have already been dead. The reason Lu Ruyan was able to sit on the seat of the chief was probably related to the little girl. Qin Mu paid no attention to the situation and asked with a smile, "Little darling, what's your name?" The little girl raised her head and smiled sweetly at him. "Cult Master Qin, my name is Lu Zhenqing." Lu Zhenqing. Qin Mu nodded. The little girl's pure smile could fight with his honest smile. Both could easily make people put their guard down, and so he knew that it wouldn't be a good idea to trifle with her. The little girls of West Earth can't be underestimated. After a moment, the women from True Heaven Palace were killed by the experts of Lu family, while Qin Mu brought Lu Zhenqing and Xianxia to the side. He saw an elder of Lu family taking a root and tapping it on the corpses of the experts of True Heaven Palace. Their corpses then stood up. It was due to the spell of Lu family which had awakened their spirits, and there were spells of this field in 10,000 spirit nature technique that Qin Mu had cultivated. However, seeing how the spirits were awakened in the corpses was still somewhat shocking. Cult Master Qin. The spirit revived from the corpse isn't the soul of the original host. Lu Zhenqing looked at Lu Ruyan, who was not far away, and whispered, "She's not Lu Ruyan, and I'm also not her daughter." Qin Mu was stunned and puzzled. "Yet you still call her mother, and she calls you little darling. Lu family has no familial bonds and no blood relations. Our blood is cold," Lu Zhenqing said with a dim expression. "When I call her mother, I feel a little warmth in my corpse body as though I'm still alive. She also feels the same way." Qin Mu looked at Lu Ruyan, who was walking over to them, and smiled. The spirits transformed from corpses might have cold blood, but they had human feelings. It was a great contrast to some people who might have warm blood, but who didn't have a hint of human affection. "Cult Master Qin, are you satisfied?" Lu Ruyan looked at him with a smile that was not really a smile. Qin Mu laughed loudly and bowed to the ground. "Sister Ruyan, forgive me. However, wasn't Sister also scheming against me by leaving Zhenqing beside me?" Lu Ruyan returned his bow and sighed. "Yet I ain't as ruthless as you. I have no choice. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to ally myself with Sister." Qin Mu examined the god's coffin and asked with curiosity, "Who is that in the god's coffin? Why is he sealed?" "I also saw divine light coming out from a few coffins. Were they gods and devils as well?" Lu Ruyan shook her head. "The elders who had died and were revived over a dozen times have refined their corporeal bodies into those of gods, but they are different from the god in the golden coffin. The god's corpse within it is that of a true god." Qin Mu jumped in shock and couldn't help taking a few more glances at it. Lu Zhenqing suddenly coughed, and Lu Ruyan understood. She said meaningfully, "The sky is already turning dark, so why doesn't Cult Master Qin stay for the night before hurrying on his way tomorrow? Cult Master can rest here tonight. My coffin will be slightly ajar." Qin Mu's scalp crawled, and he felt a chill go down his bones. He immediately said righteously, "I have already promised Poison Master Mu Yingxue to meet her, and I've delayed the meeting for almost a year. Time is running out, so Cheer and I have to hurry on our way. Farewell. No need to send me off." After he finished saying that, he took Xianxia's small hand and called the dragon Qilin over. They fled God Burial Valley through the darkness outside. Qin Mu smacked the dragon Qilin but fiercely, and they left in a panic. Lu Ruyan brought her daughter out to see them rushing into the distance, and they couldn't help being disappointed and frustrated. Why is it so hard to find a father with human affection? Lu Jinqing said dejectedly. Don't worry, mother will find a good father for you, Lu Ruyan consoled her. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 459, Thunder Mountain City's Battle. Early in the morning, Thunder Mountain City was already emanating with medicinal fragrance. Qin Mu sniffed the air and knew that it was poisonous fog given off by numerous toxic substances. He immediately refined a few poison-avoiding pills for Dragon Qilin and Xianxia to hold in their mouths. Poison Master Mu Yingshua's city was different from the ordinary cities. All kinds of poisonous grass and flowers, as well as venomous insects, could be seen everywhere. They were raised by the people of Thunder Mountain City in their gardens while the insects crawled everywhere on the ground. Some of the people even reared venomous birds and beasts which roamed everywhere. The houses were covered with poisonous vines from which green snakes would pop their heads out at times to hiss at passers-by. A bunch of big-eared possums with scales ran past the dragon Qilin, chasing a couple big centipedes that were roughly 3 feet long. The morning time in Thunder Mountain City was very bustling, and shouting could be heard coming from the streets from time to time. God damn it! Whose venomous wasp is this? My face is all swollen. Bring the antidote quickly. Which utterly heartless person poured the medicinal dregs on the street? My leg is numb and black. It's almost rotting. Who poured those medicinal dregs? Son of a B*****. I'll poison you to death. Qin Mu walked through the street of Thunder Mountain City, and there were quite a number of merchants selling the poison they had refined in the open. Their clamoring voices filled the air endlessly. Sister Mu's Thunder Mountain City is pretty flourishing. When Qin Mu examined his surroundings, he saw numerous precious herbs, some which he bought. A number of the poison pills that the peddlers sold were also of good quality and could be used as basic poisons to refine even stronger toxins, so he also got some. Without paying attention to it, he came to the center of Thunder Mountain City, which was the most bustling place. There were numerous circular arenas, and divine arts practitioners who refined poison were fighting in them. Qin Mu stopped to look for a moment and saw that the divine arts practitioners were fighting differently from how it was normally done. There were numerous jars around them and also all kinds of green leaves, flowers, and grass. The two divine arts practitioners would execute their spells and force the venomous insects or other creatures to kill each other in the jars. The winner would then crawl out of the jar to nibble on the green leaves and evolve. The two divine arts practitioners would then quickly plant seeds within it and catalyze them with strange spells so they would grow quickly and bear fruit. The divine arts practitioners on both sides used rhizomes or fruits to feed venomous insects and the divine arts of all things having spirit to make them grow rapidly, spewing poisonous fog or poisonous fire at the opponent. The two venomous insects would then fight fiercely while the divine arts practitioners would avoid each other's attacks and prepare antidotes. Fighting in arena forces them to refine poison on the spot, and the same goes for the venomous insect and poisonous herb growing, but that is only fair. However, the abilities of these divine arts practitioners are poor and there's not much to see. Qin Mu continued to head forward until he suddenly heard a loud explosion when an arena split apart. A huge creature popped out and took up almost half of the arena. It was a huge spider whose upper body was that of a beautiful woman. It shrieked and shook its body, swallowing clouds and spitting out fog to force all the people who were standing around and watching to move back. Qin Mu looked at it with astonishment. To be able to use of the numerous poisonous grass, flowers, and venomous insect to raise such a venomous creature, the ability of this divine arts practitioner is no small matter. A woman in black rose from the body of the venomous spider, but a black veil covered her face. However, from the skin that could be seen, she definitely had poisonous warts like a toad all over her face. She shouted sternly, "Mu Yingxua, I'm back once more. Get your ass out here, for I want to settle who's truly better." Qin Mu instantly became excited and came to the bottom of the arena to spectate the battle. The other divine arts practitioners of Thunder Mountain City also flooded over and created an impenetrable crowd around the arena. A woman said excitedly, "Poison Master is going to make a move." Another woman was also in high spirits. "It's been a long time since Poison Master made a move." Rumors say that ever since Poison Master met Middle-earth's heavenly devil cult master, who is also a great expert on the poison path, the two of them had their first awakening of love, catching the eyes of each other. They even had an indescribable love affair. After Poison Master came back, her abilities in the poison path increased tremendously and advanced even further on the poison path, entering the realm that was so mysterious that even gods and spirits could not predict it. Who would dare to challenge her? "You don't recognize this woman? She's none other than the poison expert of True Heaven Palace with the name Xianxia. She's also one of the top-notch figures of the poison path. She had once fought with our poison master for the title and lost. Her face was then ruined by Poison Master." Qin Mu blinked. When had he and Mu Xianxia had an indescribable love affair? He had clearly fought against her with poison, and both of them had sent one another all they had, changing one another into ugly and deformed beings. That wasn't romantic, but it could be seen as an appreciation of one another's talents. "She did give me a kiss, though." When the youth remembered this, his heart pounded violently, and a different kind of feeling and emotion rose within him. He suddenly woke up with a start. "Crap! My heartbeat is increasing and blood is rushing to my face. My breathing is also becoming ragged, and there's a warm feeling in my heart when I think of her. Could it be the yearning poison that Sister Mu had placed on me that's acting up? However, this poison doesn't seem to be dangerous. Yeah, there's no need to worry." He moved his thoughts to Ling Yuxiu, Si Yunxiang, He, and the other girls, and that warm feeling instantly vanished. "Seems like yearning poison isn't hard to deal with." The youth composed himself. "Mu Xianxia, you don't dare to show yourself?" The woman in black on the arena sneered. "You aren't a man. Tucking your tail between your legs isn't how you do things." At that moment, a soft laugh could be heard, and green vines began to grow rapidly in the distance. They started at a mansion in the center of the city and were getting thicker and thicker, like green dragons. Large green leaves quickly shot out, and the vines grew even longer. In just a short moment, they covered 3 to 4 miles and came to the top of the arena. Pop! A soft pop sounded out as a huge flower bud grew out from a green vine which hung above the arena. It bloomed and a maiden with snow-white skin jumped out. Before she even landed on the ground, seeds on the arena sprouted and another huge flower bloomed. Mu Xianxia stepped on its stamens with bare feet instead of landing on the ground. With a smile, she said, "You Xianxia, you lost to me the previous time and haven't even undone the remnant of the poison I left in your body. The once charming face of yours is still filled with warts. Aren't you just seeking death by coming this time?" Yu Qingchan laughed softly. He, do you think I didn't improve at all during these years? After I lost to you and got disfigured, which man dared to look at my face? All of my visiting marriage partners were gone. Mu Xianxia felt some of her sorrow. We who refine poison indeed do not have any men that would dare to come close to us. After all, at the slightest misstep, they would be poisoned to death. Sister Qingchan, we are fellow sufferers that empathize with each other. However, she smiled and her expression became cheerful once more. I already have my one true love, and he is also a poison expert, the number 3 in the world. My one true love has already entered West Earth to look for me. So, Sister Qingchan, do forgive this little sister for not being able to accompany you in singledom. Qin Mu couldn't restrain his smile. Mu Xianxia was always this clever and queer. However, he hadn't come to West Earth just to find her. Yu Qingchan chuckled and said, "You have a close friend, and luckily, I also have one. My close friend is 100 times better than yours, and he's none other than the Grandmaster of Roland's Golden Palace, who has remarkable abilities in the poison path. With his guidance, I have cultivated my poison path to the realm of the soul. Mu Xianxia, you little slut. I will not only make you give up the title of the Poison Master, but also make you die a miserable death." Mu Xianxia's expression changed slightly. Grandmaster of Roland's Golden Palace? That Grandmaster who is known for his shaman poison and soul poison? No wonder Sister dared to come find me in Thunder Mountain City. That Grandmaster sure has some abilities. Xianxia sneered at her. Now you are scared? Little slut. I'll gamble with you today. Xianxia smiled and said, not to the extent of being scared. Ever since I fought with my little lover, my poison path has improved by leaps and bounds, and I'm no longer what I was before. Not to mention you, even if Grandmaster came to find me, I could still poison him to death with a flick of the finger. However, since you have come to challenge me, it wouldn't be right not to take up the challenge. On what would you like to gamble? We'll gamble on your man. Xianxia suddenly raised her hand to point below the arena, straight at Qin Mu, while chuckling. The life of your man. Qin Mu's surroundings instantly emptied out as everyone scattered to prevent themselves from being implicated. He alone stood in his original place. Even Xianxia had been brought away by the dragon Qilin. Qin Mu was pretty surprised as he looked at the stage and smiled helplessly at the young woman on the stage while thinking to himself, West Earth's tracking is simply too masterful. I had never truly escaped it. Xianxia's spirits rose and she wanted to jump down from the stage, but she suddenly stopped. Since she was already standing on the arena, jumping down would mean that she admitted defeat and gave up on the title of Poison Master. It would be losing without a fight. All right, we'll bet on my man. Excited, Xianxia turned her head back to smile at her opponent. You merged soul poison and our West Earth spell of awakening spirit, and used the poisonous substances on the arena to refine such a huge creature, which is truly extraordinary. Your abilities have improved a lot compared to before, but I can also use the poisonous substances on the arena to deal with it. Her bare feet gently touched the stamens, and poisonous flowers and grass bloomed along with the venomous insects and toads. Sister Xianxia, you are only on poison technique while I'm already entering the path, understanding all kinds of inconceivable things of the poison path. You thought you had made your move one step earlier than me and achieved the upper hand, but you didn't expect that you had never had the upper hand in the first place. Wonderful things happened, and the poisonous flowers and grass as well as venomous insects and toads started to change form, transforming from one object into another, evolving from one kind of toxin to another. Her spell of creation could be said to be strange and mysterious. Qin Mu exclaimed endlessly in admiration. Ever since Xianxia had lost to him, her attainments in all things having spirits had grown without end. Even her technique of creation had become mysterious and strange. Xianxia shouted out sternly, and the huge spider under her feet waved its claws. The arena wasn't huge, so when the venomous spider that took up half of it started moving, there was little space for Xianxia to dodge. Venomous eggs under the venomous spider's abdomen split open and transformed into tens of thousands of little spiders that covered the whole arena and swarmed toward Xianxia. Yet, before the venomous creatures could reach her side, they suddenly froze and shattered. The huge spider also gave off a miserable shriek before shattering into pieces. Xianxia rose into the air in a hurry while shouting sternly, I will still come back to find you, sister, in your next life. Xianxia flicked her sleeve, and Xianxia collapsed into a pile of blood water. Tales of Hurting Gods. Chapter 460, Expecting the Blossom of Scholatry. Sister Mu's poison technique has already joined the pieces together, entering a realm that's so mysterious that even gods and spirits could not predict it. Qin Mu couldn't help exclaiming in admiration. Xianxia's attainments in the poison path had already surpassed his, and he had to admit that she really had outstanding comprehension in this field. She had a really unique thought process which was really suited to comprehending the poison path. After that battle with him, she had to have absorbed part of Apothecary's ideology and found her own path, so she could easily defeat Xianxia. Apothecary's attainments in the poison path were extraordinary, but Qin Mu mainly specialized in treating and saving people. He didn't research much into poison techniques, so it was natural for him to be surpassed by Xianxia. If it was him fighting with Xianxia in the arena with the poisonous substances on the arena, he would have needed to use the creation techniques from great educational heavenly devil scriptures to change the toxicity. Even though it was similar to Xianxia's ideology, he would have needed to spend quite some time to achieve the same result. He could defeat Yu Qingquan, but it wouldn't be as easy as it was for Mu Yingxue. Of course, Qin Mu cultivated medicine and poison together, using medicine to supplement poison, which had an unexpected effect. If it was truly a life and death struggle, it would be hard to say which of them would come out superior. Mu Yingxue jumped down from the arena, but she still didn't touch the ground. A vine automatically grew out from the ground and huge leaves lifted her up. She stretched her hand out toward Qin Mu, who took it and got pulled onto the leaf. The green vine under their feet grew higher and higher, lifting them up. Mu Yingxue waved toward everyone below the arena, full of delight and pride. Look, even we who refine poison can still find our ideal husbands. My little man, Middle-earth's heavenly devil cult master, he's very powerful. Cheers erupted below. Some girl laughed loudly. Poison Master, you have found your ideal husband after one trip to Middle-earth. So when will you bring all of us to Middle-earth? Mu Yingxue looked down at them with excitement. After my little man's matters are finished, I'll bring you to Middle-earth to bring misfortune to Middle-earth's men. I've heard it's men who are superior in Middle-earth. What a truly backward region. Let's go correct them. That's right. Correct them. Another girl smiled and said, it's not easy for Poison Master to find a person she likes, so we have to celebrate. The laughter of numerous girls was still echoing in the streets when a group rushed out from somewhere. They slapped their waist drums and tapped their feet to the beat, dancing and singing. Thunder Mountain City instantly became bustling, and numerous young men and women took each other's hands, singing the folk songs of West Earth shoulder to shoulder. Some divine arts practitioner executed the divine arts of West Earth, and the green vines, poisonous flowers, as well as grass, grew frantically. The men and women who cultivated poison techniques wandered through the flowers and sang songs to each other. Some even stood on rising vine leaves to dance with the partners they admired. Gongs and drums rang out, and loud and clear song pierced the air. Qin Mu, who stood on the leaf, looked down and saw a huge green toad with white belly walking over from the end of the street, taking up most of it. A bunch of big-eared possums followed behind it, showing off their glossy metal scales. Beside them were numerous toad spirits that were croaking in accompaniment. The toad spirits rapidly stuck out their tongues to hit the scales of the possums, giving off clear clangs. There were also numerous toad spirits dancing and beating gongs and drums while some played the short flutes with their 4 fingers. A few big centipedes tapped to the rhythm as they wiggled their bodies. From time to time, there would be centipedes flying up and kicking onto the bulging cheeks of the toad spirits, making them croak. On the head of the big green toad, a pretty young woman slowly stood up. Her black dress swirled as she sang. Qin Mu was very engrossed in the song. Even though the green vine had already risen very high, the magnificent sight of the city in celebration was still in his eyes. The melodious singing voices all reached his ears. The passionate feelings of the maidens of West Earth flooded him like waves, wrapping him up layer by layers as they poured into his heart. The green vine suddenly lowered him and Mu Yingxue, bringing them through one street after another. There were people dancing everywhere with strange and weird spirits and venomous creatures. Everyone did flamboyant dance poses and messy dance moves before raising their hands up to touch those of his and Mu Yingxue that was stretched out. The tune that resonated throughout the whole Thunder Mountain City suddenly became reverberating and impassionate, happy and noisy. Qin Mu felt like he had come to a kingdom of the legends, where giant green vines carried him and a young maiden beside him to pass through all the streets filled with joyful people. The green vine brought them back, raising them up and down along the way. Girls on the various trees stepped on the leaves to hang flower garlands on their necks. There were also young girls lying on the treetops, swinging their little legs and looking at the both of them who were rising up. With their hands cupped around their mouths, they sang love songs that tugged at people's heartstrings, while a swarm of locusts tapped on small gongs with their hind legs in accompaniment. Green vines stretched toward the center of the city and went over the incomparably bustling streets, stretching above the circular houses and coming to Mu Yingxue's palace hall. The loft of the palace had its windows open, and the green vine sent the young man and woman on the leaf into the room. Qin Mu and Mu Yingxue stood in front of the window and watched the bustling crowd moving through the street below, continuing with their songs and dances. They were still celebrating the happy occasion. Poison Master Mu Yingxue finding her ideal husband. So embarrassing. Mu Yingxue covered her face and grumbled. They're celebrating like this as though I shouldn't have been able to find my ideal husband. They can't wait to send me off for visiting marriage. Qin Mu looked at her and saw that the girl before him, who was number 1 in West Earth's poison path, didn't have any hint of bashfulness. Instead, she was very daring and hot, diluting the bashfulness with her burning passion. The passion of West Earth's maiden was slightly hard for Qin Mu to stomach, and the intoxicating morning of Thunder Mountain City had left him slightly bewitched. His thoughts scattered, and he got lost in his emotions. The celebration was only the first thing. When afternoon came, Mu Yingxue couldn't conceal her excitement. She lay her head on Qin Mu's shoulder and looked quite blissful. The dragon Qilin carefully walked among the poisonous flowers while looking at the young men and young women that were still standing at the windows while grumbling softly. Back then, Patriarch had also degenerated this way. Every year, that dirty old man would abandon me to come to West Earth. Qin Mu finally woke up from the dream and said, "Sister Mu, we still have important matters to settle." Mu Yingshua's face grew slightly red and she tugged at the corner of his shirt. "Visiting marriage is at night. Why are you so impatient? Can't you endure a bit more? However, if you are really urgent, I can't. I can't yield to you. Over here, women are the ones in charge. Men have to accommodate the women." Qin Mu blinked and patiently waited for her to finish talking. "Sister, the reason I came to West Earth this time is because I'm trying to help Xianxia and her daughter take back the position of true Heaven Palace Master. And that's why I created such a big ruckus. This should be the family matters of your West Earth, but back when Xiong family was overthrown by Yu family and numerous people died, you had already gotten related." Mu Yingxue nodded and ordered for the Dragon Qilin and Xianxia to be invited inside, while she continued to be intimate with Qin Mu. "Back when Yu family made their move on Xiong family, I had indeed been of great help. Yu family had a Bago whose origin is very terrifying, so I was forced to agree to help Yu family poison Xiong family. My poison didn't take their lives, but you know that." Qin Mu nodded. Mu Yingshua's poison was coiling silk which destroyed a person's cultivation but didn't harm the person otherwise. When Qin Mu had met Xianxia, what she was suffering from was coiling silk poison, which had severely damaged her cultivation. It was because of that she had been chased down by Yu Buochuan until she was in an extremely miserable state. Mu Yingshua's face darkened when she said, "I never expected Yu family to be so ruthless, eliminating all of the Xiong family. However, even if I had known that Yu family would do so, I would have still helped them." Qin Mu looked at her with puzzlement. Mu Yingxue sighed. "The lives of everyone in my Mu family and Thunder Mountain City rest on my shoulders, and if I hadn't listened, Yu family would have laid their hands on my people. As Poison Master, I need to think of my Mu family. Nai Kuei hates me very much, right?" Shame showed up on her face, but she quickly concealed it. She returned back to her usual cold look and said, "There's nothing I can do even if she hates me. I couldn't gamble the lives of my family for her. Sister should know my aim for coming, right?" Mu Yingxue was the chief of Mu family, and her networks were fast and abundant. She nodded and said, "I know. From the moment you stepped into West Earth and True Heaven Palace ordered your arrest, I knew what you had come here for. Heavenly Devil Cult Master, you have great ambition and you won't risk your life to come here just for the love between a man and a woman. You aren't here for me, and not here for the visiting marriage. You are here to pull off a grand scheme." The air around her suddenly changed and became chilly. "You want to flip West Earth upside down and change it completely. Your ambition lies in annexing West Earth into Eternal Peace Empire's rule. And the fastest way to achieve this is by supporting Xianxia in becoming the Palace Master of True Heaven Palace. She has nothing left and is burdened with revenge, so she has no choice but to agree with you and the terms of Eternal Peace Emperor. Once she becomes the Palace Master again, True Heaven Palace will announce their merger with Eternal Peace." Qin Mu couldn't help sighing ruefully. After coming to West Earth, he had met numerous unusual women. There was He who was natural yet wise, and Lu family's mother and daughter who were very cunning. All of them were extremely outstanding, and their vision was far-reaching. Mu Yingxue, who was in front of him, was also outstanding. I've owed Xiong family too much, but I can't throw away the lives of my family just because I owe them. You have not met Ba Go and don't know his prowess. But I do. I know how terrifying he is, and I also know that there's a god living in true heaven palace. No matter how strong your forces are and how many experts of West Earth you gather, you can't win. You will just send yourselves to your deaths. I shouldn't have come, Qin Mu said sadly, standing up. Mu Yingshue's heart trembled and she rose as well. I want you to stay and not die. If you want to go, I won't stop you. The women of my West Earth won't hold back a man who's insistent on leaving. Qin Mu bowed. Sister Mu, farewell. After he said so, he turned around to walk out of the building. You! Mu Yingxue gritted her teeth and shouted after him. You will die. Do you know that? Qin Mu turned back to smile at her. Back when I rescued them, I knew I might die if I lent a helping hand, but I still did it. Sister, I won't force you to do anything for me. Mu Yingxue was anxious and stamped her feet. Even if you die, I won't think of you. Qin Mu laughed and came face to face with the Dragon Qilin and Xianxia who were coming up. This town of warmth, I've seen it. Fatty dragon. Let's go. The Dragon Qilin was puzzled, but he still sprinted down the building, carrying them out of the city. Brother-in-law. In one street, a girl raised her head and looked at Qin Mu's back that was rushing away. Qin Mu threw a fragrance pouch toward the girl and recited loudly, Busy days have ways to get through them too. My nature is stupid and that's hard to change. Sister, treat it as I've never come. Mu Yingxue looked at him, who was leaving Thunder Mountain City, until he completely vanished. She walked out of the building and saw Thunder Mountain City in a mess. Everywhere there were traces left behind by the celebration in the morning. Toad spirits were cleaning up slowly, dragging the drunk people away. At one corner of the street, a few girls looked at her, and one pushed herself to say, Sister, brother-in-law, he's gone. Mu Yingxue heard herself say in a voice that was unfamiliar to her. He probably won't come back anymore. She touched her face and realized that it had become wet at some point. Brother-in-law just passed this to me, it should be sisters. The girl Qin Mu had met walked over, and in her hands was a fragrance pouch with embroidered golden mandarin ducks. Mu Yingxue opened the fragrance pouch and took out the red beans of yearning.